Township Planning Board regular meeting for Tuesday, August 6th, 2024. Adequate notice of this meeting has been given in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 10:4-6. On February 7th, 2024, proper notice was sent to the Courier News and the Star Ledger and filed with the clerk at the Township of Bridgewater and posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building. Please be aware of the Planning Board policy for public hearings. No new applications will be heard after 9:30 p.m. and no new testimony will be taken after 10 p.m. Hearing assistance is available upon request. Accommodation will be made for individuals with a disability pursuant to the Americans with Disabilities Act, or ADA, provided the individual with the disability provides 48 hours advance notice to the Planning Department Secretary before the public meeting. However, if the individual should require special equipment or services, such as a CART transcriber, 7 days advance notice, excluding weekends and holidays, may be necessary. Would everyone please rise to salute the flag?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Probst, could I have a roll call, please? Here.
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 Here. Here. Here.
Here.
Thank you, Ms. Probst. At this time, I'd like to open the meeting up to the public. Any members of the public wishing to address the board on any land use matter other than the application that will be heard this evening, please come forward at this time. Seeing none, hearing none. We'll be beginning this evening with item number 10 from the agenda. That's the master plan amendment open for a public hearing, the amended housing plan element and fair share plan. Ms. Sarmad, would you like to give the board some background on this item?
Yes, thank you very much. So this is mostly just procedural, meaning that there's no substantive changes to the housing element being proposed tonight. Actually, the housing element was amended back in November 2023, which was done even thereafter what was already effectuated. So what was written in November 2023 as an amendment to the housing element fair share plan was already effectuated by a reexamination report and by an ordinance change, and then was just put forth in the housing element to make sure that it was basically taken into account historically when you look back at what's included in our housing element. So I'll give a brief history of the kind of the third round affordable housing steps, just so we all know it's clear, and then hopefully it's, if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them, and then what I'd ask is that the board approve that, and I'll give you kind of some background of why we need it approved. So the original housing element fair share plan was adopted August 8th, 2017. That was based on a settlement agreement in the third round. Settlement agreements were signed between Fair Share Housing Center and the town and the municipalities, and the settlement agreement was signed on February 28th, 2017, and what's called the Judgment of Compliance and Repose, which is when the court acted upon it after a fairness hearing and a compliance hearing, showing that the housing element and the settlement agreement is fair and reasonable to low-income and moderate-income households. That was filed by court order December 8th, 2017. The housing element was amended November 25th, 2023, but prior to that, there were ordinances adopted in 2022. So ordinance number 22-17, which is October 11th, 2022, was a resolution that was passed for that, an ordinance was passed that date, and that ordinance was adopted to effectuate the RMDU 26 multifamily residential zone, which effectuated the changes that were then put forth in that housing element from November 2023. More recently, the township, in order to have everything put in place before the courts, because that's how the third round was done, had to go back before the courts to amend the JOR, the Judgment of Compliance and Repose, which was done May 21st of this year. And one of the requirements of that new court order was essentially that we provide proof that the housing element from November was adopted. It was never formally adopted. It was prepared. It captured everything that had happened to date. It provided this whole history. That's what the amendment is really limited to. However, the planning board never adopted that housing element. And so what I ask of the board tonight is essentially to simply adopt the housing element fair share plan by resolution so that it can be then submitted to the courts to show that we're in compliance with our updated JOR.
Thank you, Ms. Sorman, for that review. Does the board have any questions regarding the testimony given by Ms. Sorman?
Mr. Chairman, I have a brief comment and then a clarifying question.
Councilman.
For the benefit of everyone in the room, particularly certain residents that are here, this is a reflection that the mayor and the governing body take this responsibility very seriously. There's certainly been a substantial amount of work that's happened over many years, many mayoral administrations. So as background, my clarifying question is, what we're talking about here is the current requirements, recognizing that there will be new regulations that are coming down the pipeline potentially as soon as this fall, correct?
Correct. These were previous mechanisms that were used to satisfy the third round housing obligation.
Okay, and just for everybody's knowledge, the goalposts are changing yet again, or at least we anticipate that to be the case. So the fact that we are in compliance is certainly a feather in our cap. It certainly puts us in a position that is different than some of our neighboring municipalities. But unfortunately, when the next round comes, everything starts fresh again. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other questions?
No, but the benefit it will continue to provide us is that if we are in compliance with our judgment of compliance from repose, we will continue to have immunity, what's called immunity from any builder's remedy lawsuits through June 30th of 2025.
Any other comments? Any comments from our members of the public? Hearing none, seeing none, I'd like to ask the board if we have a motion for approval to adopt the amended housing plan element and fair share plan dated November 25th, 2023. That's Mr. Pappas.
I'll second.
That's Ms. Sikora. Have a roll call, please. Yes.
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 Thank you very much, Ms. Sarman. We're going to move to item number 11 on the list. That's a preliminary investigation of an area in need of redevelopment, and that's the municipal yardway site at Block 349, Lot 2, commonly known as 136 Foothill Road. And this evening, who will be giving that presentation? Okay. Hopefully it'll stay, yeah.
A little bit of an exhibit. It's an excerpt from the plan that you already have. Good evening. For the record, my name is Michael Sullivan. I'm a principal with Clark Caton Hints in Trenton, New Jersey. We're a planning, landscape architecture, and architecture firm. And I am the redevelopment planner for Bridgewater. For the record, I'm a licensed professional planner in the state of New Jersey. I've been licensed since 1992, member of the American Institute of Certified Planners, and I'm a licensed landscape architect in the state of New Jersey. The purpose of tonight's hearing is to focus on whether this property, the municipal yardway site, should be designated as a redevelopment area. And this process began when the Township Council directed by resolution the Planning Board to study this area and for my firm to investigate the evidence and the characteristics of this property to determine that. Such a determination, as your attorney has probably told you, is provided for New Jersey's local redevelopment and housing law. And within the statute, a redevelopment area is defined as an area determined to be in need of redevelopment pursuant to sections 5 and 6. or those areas which do not meet the criteria in 5 or 6, but are necessary for the redevelopment. Within Section 5 is the criteria, and without getting into each one of them, generally, redevelopment areas are unproductive or areas in a town, sometimes deemed blighted areas, but they're properties with conditions that are either detrimental to public health and safety or the welfare for various reasons, obsolescent conditions or unproductive conditions. A preliminary investigation, which we prepared, is an analysis. It's a compendium and summary of an analysis of the property's characteristics relative to the criteria within the housing law in Section 5, and to determine whether or not it should be designated as an area in need of redevelopment. The preliminary investigation that was prepared by me is dated July 16th, 2024. It's draft, and the reason we keep it draft is because there may be evidence that's brought up at the planning board that we didn't consider, and also so that we can, once we do have a recommendation from the planning board, we can include the resolution in that plan and finalize it and send it off to the governing body for their decision. So tonight I'm going to present a summary of my findings and the evidence that we found with respect to the redevelopment, and this will include a description of the physical description of the property and some general information about what the land uses are, what the zoning is, and also the evidence that we found and the determination. Jumping ahead, just to give you a little preview, is that we did find that it does meet the criteria for redevelopment area pursuant to subsections C and H of the local redevelopment and housing law. So the location of the site, it's at Foothill Road, 136 Foothill Road, and it's got the municipal compost facility, yard waste facility on it. It's owned by Bridgewater Township, and it's got no assessed improvement value to it, and it has not had that. We look back to 2005, there's no assessment value to this property. It is in municipal ownership, so there's no taxes coming in from this, and it's unproductive. It's located south of Route 287 and near the Route 28 interchange, and has frontage on Foothill Road where the access to the municipal yard waste site is, and Promenade Boulevard, the commercial planned development. The size of the site is 31.182 acres. As I said, the current use is the municipal yard waste site. The township has an agreement through 2025 with the company Nature's Choice Corporation to operate that yard waste site. It's coming to a close. The yard waste site occupies approximately 3.5 acres on the site. It is it's a minor part of a 31-acre parcel. The existing structures of the yard waste facility are, a temporary office, some blocks for storage of outdoor materials, and some of the processing areas, bulk things, but there's no permanent structures on the property. The undeveloped portion of the property is approximately 28 acres, is primarily wooded wetlands, and we do have a wetland delineation. We'll talk about that later. The zoning is planned retail, commercial, and public development zone, which is the same zoning that Costco has and Trader Joe's has, and is part of the larger planned commercial development area over there. And that zoning requires 125 acres minimum to develop, and it's only 31 acres, so it doesn't meet that criteria. Permitted uses include commercial and retail facilities, manufacturing, public uses, research laboratory, essential services, and agriculture and horticulture. So that's the basics of the site. We have an aerial here. This is contained in the study, the investigation, and it shows the site at the middle, Block 39, Lot 2. The aerial's dated from March of this year, and you can see the Costco and Trader Joe's to the south, 287 to the east. Promenade Boulevard wraps around on the east to the northern side, and then Foothill Road cutting through on a diagonal.
Mr. Chairman, can I just suggest for maybe a couple of minutes that you turn it the other way so that everyone in the audience can kind of take in the essence of it, and then turn it back to us, just so that everyone can get the visual?
Sure.
Can that occur without interrupting your flow? Okay, great. Okay.
So as I said before, the criterion that we see, criterion C and criterion H under the statute are applicable due to the characteristics of the site. So let's talk about criterion C for a second, under Section 5 of the Local Redevelopment and Housing Law. Criterion C says that land that is owned by a municipality, the county, a local housing authority, redevelopment agency, or redevelopment entity, or unimproved land that has remained so for a period of 10 years prior to the adoption of the resolution. The resolution is to study the property. So it's 10 years prior to the governing body resolution. And that by reason of its location, remoteness, lack of means of access to developed sections or portions of the municipality, or topography or nature of the soil is not likely to be developed through the instrumentality of private capital. So that's the criterion. I'll explain why. As I said before, the majority of the site is composed of wooded wetlands. And we have a wetland delineation that was done for the property that the township commissioned. The majority of the property is wetlands. It's, first of all, it's been unimproved for a period of 10 years. We look back at historic aerials going back 10 years. There's been no development other than the municipal yard waste facility that's there. So it's remained that way, and that's not, we don't count the yard waste site in that, but we do count the majority of the property. So 27 acres has remained, the majority of this property has remained unimproved 10 years. As I said, there's no assessed improvements. The yard waste facility is all temporary structures, and there's no permanent structures there. But the thing that really links this to criterion C is not just the vacancy and the unimprovement, but it's the condition of the soils and the topography. And because 27 acres of the property is wetlands, and it's been delineated, right? And I'm going to turn this around now and show you the areas that are delineated wetlands. So this is an exhibit from the investigation, and the purple areas are the buildable area or upland area. The green areas are delineated wetlands, and the orange areas are presumed 50-foot transition areas or wetland buffers that would be required by the state, assuming that this is intermediate value wetlands on the site. And I've been out there. There's beautiful woods out there. This is, you know, there's beautiful big trees. It is a wooded wetland. So what you can see here is that the majority of this is green and orange. This is the yard waste site here in this purple area. There's some uplands here, and over here, and over here, and to the north. And so we've got these fragments of uplands that could be developable at some level, but the delineation of wetlands is really a surrogate for topography and soils, and also vegetation, but the statute doesn't talk about vegetation. It talks about soils and topography. The delineation of wetlands requires a three-part test. You have to find hydrology, which is topography and water interaction, that holds water, surface water. So you find water or either intermittently at the surface, and that's due to topography. You also find soils, hydric soils. Okay, so that's part of the wetland delineation. So when this is delineated, like as it is now with the freshwater wetlands, the soils and the topography are the reasons, because they're creating a wetland condition, that this has been unimproved and vacant for more than 10 years. And so we can apply criterion C to this property because of the topography and the nature of the soils, as it is through the wetland delineation. The second criterion is criterion H, and criterion H is what's called the smart growth area criterion, and it's not a criterion that the courts have said you could use on its own. A smart growth area has been determined by the state. Let's roll back a second. The state plan identifies planning areas in the state, and the state plan's been around for a long time. They're trying to update it now. We're going to see if it happens. And the state plan delineates planning areas 1, 2, 3, 4, 4B, which is environmentally sensitive, and it designates centers. And the Office of Planning Advocacy several years ago decided that they were going to determine what constituted a smart growth area, because smart growth areas are mentioned in the state plan, they're mentioned in the redevelopment and housing law, and they're also mentioned in other, like, for instance, the qualified allocation plan for affordable housing mentions smart growth areas, right? So they defined it, and they said that planning area 1, the metropolitan planning area, is a smart growth area. Well, the entirety of Bridgewater is in planning area 1. So because we have another criterion that we have linked this site to and that it meets, we can also link criterion H, which is smart growth criterion. So we think there's plenty of evidence for criterion C and criterion H. And as I said, the municipal yard waste facility does not have wetlands on it, so it does not meet criterion C on its own. But the majority of this property does. But the statute allows for redevelopment areas to be delineated or designated where portions of the area may not meet the criteria, but they're necessary for the effective redevelopment of an area that does meet the criteria. And so there's evidence here, and I state this in the report, that the municipal yard waste area should be included too, as well as the other upland pieces, because you really can't use them without the other. The other thing about the municipal yard waste site is that if, let's say, an entity were to come here and be able to fill some wetlands, because you can fill some wetlands, they could use that site for redevelopment, but also for access to other portions of the redevelopment area. So the summary recommendation is that we find substantial evidence that it meets criterion C, criterion H, and that the upland areas of the property should also be included as an area of redevelopment for the necessary, for the effective redevelopment of the property. And that's a summary of the preliminary investigation, and I'm pleased to answer any questions about the investigation.
Thank you, Mr. Sullivan, for that review. Does the board have any questions? What do we think?
Old growth trees, do you have a feeling as to the lot, there's a little, there's moderate number?
This site, I would not say there's old growth trees in there. There are lots of trees. There's not been a lot of activity in there. I believe there's been some old roads that were in there, or driveways that, you know, these areas where we have, where there's no wetlands. There are some big trees in there, but they're not old. I wouldn't consider them old growth. They are wetland trees. There's pin oaks in there. There's red maples. I might have seen a hickory in there. There's so much poison ivy on the edges of this place. It's hard to get in there deep, but there's a lot of, it's a wooded wetland area, yeah.
Do you foresee obtaining a letter of interpretation from NJDEP as far as wetland delineation?
Yeah, the township has applied for that, yes.
Mr. Chairman, there's a couple of observations that I guess I'll also put in the form of a question. You know, looking particularly at this map that identifies the wetlands, seems to me that what has been built in that general vicinity, Promenade Boulevard and the Costco and Trader Joe's in that building, the hotel, seems as though they've basically built where they could build. And that's why what we are left with is, you know, some places that are applicable, but a lot of it that is wetland and is unbuildable. So that's no mistake, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So in the planning process for Promenade Boulevard, you know, they use the same criteria, and that's why that's why the Costco is where it is, and it's not 100 feet further north, in all likelihood.
Presumably, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chowdhury, please.
No, but the smart growth areas are areas that the state plan identifies areas where they want to support growth and redevelopment. The state plan, and that starts with centers, which are cities and towns and things like that, then Planning Area 1, which is like a, here, and then it goes to PA2, which is I think PA2, PA3, and it's sort of a graduated level of how they support development and redevelopment and growth. And so when we say that this is in Planning Area 1, it's because the state policies support growth and redevelopment and investment here. That's what the state plan was really designed for. The state plan was designed as a funding guide, essentially, and a policy guide for towns. So by having redevelopment areas in Planning Area 1, you're consistent with the state policy for growth and investment and redevelopment. Can you put it, I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
Okay, yep, thank you.
Thank you.
It always helps. 3.5 acres are basically west yard, right? Yard west, 3.5 acres.
There's 3.5 acres.
Okay, so are you suggesting that, if we have to redevelop it, then we include the 3.5 also to make it all 31.5 acres?
That's correct.
Okay.
The purpose of the redevelopment statute is to get unproductive properties, and this goes back to the previous law. It's to get properties to be productive from a tax standpoint and to be productive parts of communities, right? So in considering this for redevelopment, which is the step after the township, if the township council says, yes, we want this to be a redevelopment area, you do a redevelopment plan, which would set the stage for a redevelopment of this property, and you would want as much of this property available for redevelopment as possible. So you would want to include that.
Okay, so you're basically your study shows that it could be redeveloped, that whole entire area.
No question.
Okay.
There's no question this could be redeveloped. And because you do have an ability to fill some wetlands, you have an ability to get transition area waivers to move some of the transition areas for wetlands around. A redevelopment plan for this could allow for growth that could accommodate that in some way. Okay. But to get it off the tax rolls as a zero and get into the tax rolls as something positive, which is the entire basis of the redevelopment statute.
Thank you.
Just to follow up on Mr. Chavi's question. So you said some of the area, the wetland could be developed. Is your recommendation to redevelop the entire 31 acres?
My recommendation, my recommendation and findings is there's substantial evidence based on the local redevelopment housing law that this entire property should be included in a redevelopment area. I'm not saying that the entirety of the property should be redeveloped. I'm saying that to maximize the potential for redevelopment, it should all be included. But the state has a lot to say about how wetlands are filled or transition areas are waived, and that's going to have to be somebody thinking about it beyond this phase, the redevelopment.
Like, how would you quantify some?
So,
When you say some of the wetland could be redeveloped, like, how do you define that? Is it like 2%, is it 3%?
oh no, it's a very small amount. Yeah.
Yeah, and if I may, what the board's being asked to do tonight is to whether or not to recommend this parcel to the township council as an area in need of redevelopment. But then if that happens, and then if the township council, if the board recommends, hey, this lot should be an area in need of redevelopment, and the council agrees, they'll vote and they'll formally declare it an area in need of redevelopment. But then it gets kicked back to the planning board and Mr. Sullivan to come up with a redevelopment plan, which would then decide how much of that, how deep do you want to go? How intensively do you want to develop the site? What sort of uses to have on the site? Things like that.
And then just further clarity, so the purple shaded areas are really the
They're upland areas.
upland areas. What approximately, so
And just to be clear, the orange areas are uplands too, but we think that they would be within a transition area for the wetlands. So there's some restrictions there.
and the upland areas, like, do you know approximately how much of the purple shaded area that would be given, some of the conversation that we just had regarding the wetlands? deem this a area of redevelopment, what is actually up for grabs?
The areas outside of wetlands, the total area that is not, that is upland, that is not a wetland buffer also, so outside of the buffers and outside of the wetland, just the purple area is 5 acres total, but it's disaggregated through the property.
And then just, you had mentioned some of the criteria around like the Hilton, do you know what zone those are?
Those are the same zone. It's the planned,
Is it like a C1 or C3?
no, it's the planned, retail, commercial, and public development zone. It's the same, this is the same zoning as the hotel and Costco and Trader Joe's.
Mr. Sullivan, we've discussed briefly about how some of these areas could be potentially filled, or how maybe some access points could be created with some of those transition areas if the state so deems it's appropriate. How often do these conditions of this specific site, how often would you say could they change, or have they changed? Has the soil composition changed in the last 10, 20 years? Is it a detriment to the councilman's point? It seems as though everything else is kind of growing around this one area here. So does that mean that this site is taking on a lot of the stormwater or sheet flow from the surrounding areas?
I can't answer that because I didn't prepare the wetland delineation, and I haven't looked at it from a drainage standpoint. So I can't say that for sure. But it's a relatively flat area. It's landlocked by roads and new development. When I walked the perimeter of the site, it felt like it was lower than the hotel. It was lower than Costco. There's a little berm, and then you come down, and it's lower. So there's some impoundment there. How that impoundment got there, I can't say.
Okay. It could just be natural as well, so.
It probably was. If this development all occurred around it, there was probably some natural drainage feature there or wetlands that were already starting. Could they have increased over the past 25 years? They could have, but I couldn't say.
And for members of the board and members of the public, would you be able to give an example of a smart growth planning example? So I think I read from your report the Meadowlands or potentially the Pine Barrens. Are those examples of a smart growth planning?
No, those are examples of environmental preservation areas. That's where outside, the only places in those areas where development and investment and redevelopment are encouraged are really within centers, towns, villages. In the Pinelands, it's villages, right? It could be 10 houses, and they encourage it there. But those are environmental protection areas. Those are higher level protection. They're at this end, where cities, are at this end. So Bridgewater's right here, closer to the cities than the Pinelands and the Meadowlands.
Okay, so you wouldn't consider this an environmentally protected area or in need of environmental protection?
Well, I think the state already has said that if an LOI says that these are freshwater wetlands, then there's policies to protect it. Clearly, there's buffers. So even though the site is within a metropolitan planning area 1, you still have to protect natural resources. And the state plan itself says that. And even in the planning areas where growth is focused, there's still an environmental protection aspect to it. And to maintain environmental systems, obviously water and flooding are very important in natural communities.
Any other questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, just a process reiteration. I know we've discussed this before, and I keep my handy-dandy memo here, because I certainly don't know this by memory. The redevelopment is 6 steps. We are now at step number 2. So step number 1 was when the council adopted a resolution authorizing the planning board to undertake this investigation. This step 2, the planning board is conducting a preliminary investigation, including public hearing on notice. So that's what's, I guess, about to occur, Mr. Chairman, right? And will adopt a resolution recommending or not recommending a redevelopment area. So this is really, the first opportunity for the public to see and hear this, potentially react to it, but there will be multiple opportunities further down the road for the public to be engaged in this project and to comment on it.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other comments from our board?
One more question.
Mr. Legura?
Would I be accurate in saying that this property used to be owned by American Cyanamid? The research and development wing,
I don't know the answer. Our research did not go back that far.
maybe 40 years?
We didn't go back that far.
Just something stirring in the back of my mind there.
Mr. Chairman, I just have one follow-up question. In your study of the area itself, and going back to Mr. Chairman's question on this being potentially an area of water, you know, a magnet for that, given the amount of development, do you know if there's any map that have any of the drainage kind of going into this area? Have you looked into that?
We have not. There may be associated with the construction of Promenade Boulevard or the adjacent commercial development, but it's not something that we needed to see in order to understand what's happening now existing on the site.
And then, pending approval of, you know, from the planning board today, is that something that would happen, like, conclusively if we were to deem this an area of redevelopment?
Well, I think that, in getting back to what your attorney said, we're sort of a step away from that. It's not until we look and see what the potential of the site may be from a standpoint of uses that we might look at that. If there was any connectivity or adjacencies that made sense, then whoever was developing it would have to look into that.
Well, I'm just saying, before we get to that point,
Mm-hmm.
if we know that there's any drainage that's coming from Promenade Boulevard or even Foothill, Foothill, if that water is consolidating there now, but we deem it an area of improvement, right? And then now we start to go through the process of potential areas of redevelopment, are you gonna look into, you know, that the water is
So as part of the redevelopment plan itself, we wouldn't look at it prior to a determination by the governing body. But if they say, yes, let's figure out a redevelopment plan, and that's something we should look into before we start looking at that, well, of course we can look into that.
Thank you, Mr. Banga. Any other comments? How about from our professionals? Ms. Arman?
I have no questions, thank you.
Mr. Wisniewski?
No specific comments, but I think I echo the concerns or at least additional scrutiny should be given about the surrounding drainage and how those drainage patterns exist, certainly. But I think that Mr. Sullivan has expressed that certainly, you know, the state will basically dictate what can be done within those wetland areas, protected areas, and really development would most likely occur within that municipal yard waste site more than anything. Yeah. I don't think there would ever be a plan contemplated to redevelop all 30 acres and build some massive complex there. I don't think that would happen.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to open up to any members of the public that wish to ask any questions regarding Mr. Sullivan's testimony. Please come forward at this time. Seeing none, hearing none. Mr. Peck, it sounds as though a simple vote in favor.
Yeah, we would need a motion either to recommend that that a recommendation be made to the Township Council to designate the area an area in need of redevelopment, or conversely, to not. So whoever makes the motion can,
Who would like to make that motion?
oh, wait, there's a member of the public.
Oh, there's. Please state your name and address for the record.
Oh, Dana Caparoso, 65 Twin Oaks Road.
What was that? 65?
65 Twin Oaks Road.
Oh, sure.
Just wondering, are you planning to relocate the municipal waste site? Like for, you know, yard waste and everything, or is that part of the plan, or are you just getting rid of it altogether?
If I,
Well, I mean,
This is redeveloped.
Mr. Pappas, you want to
yeah,
take that?
The plan would be to maintain a yard waste site somewhere on this parcel.
Okay. So residents could still drop off all their yard
Yes,
waste?
yes,
and everything?
yes.
Okay. That was my-
We would become very unpopular very quickly if we
I was gonna say,
didn't
use
offer
it all the
that.
time. That's my concern, so, all right, thank you.
Returning back to the board, would anybody like to make that motion previously stated by Mr. Peck?
I'll make a motion
I'll second.
To recommend?
to recommend.
To recommend? That's Ms. Sikora. That's Mr. Chowdhury. Can I have a roll call, please? Yes.
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 Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you for your attention and your time. Be well.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Moving on to our land development application portion of the evening. Just a reminder that the Haas Hula application will be carried to October 15, 2024. So this evening, we do have a continuation of Leonard Gerardo, and that's Block 718, lots 50 and 51, Mountaintop Road.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, board members, members of the public. My name is Michael Silbert. I'm an attorney from the law firm DeFrancesco Bateman, and I'm representing Leonard Gerardo this evening. Board is already familiar with this application, with the applicant having appeared before the board on May 21st, 2024, and July 17th, 2024. I'm not going to re-summarize the entire application. I'm just going to focus on a few key points. So, first of all, and I say this with the utmost respect, keep in mind that this application is for subdivision approval. It's not an application for site plan approval. The primary focus of this application should be on the creation of the lots rather than on the single-family dwellings to be constructed on those lots. Importantly, the applicant is not seeking any variance relief for deviations from the township's ordinance for the dwellings shown on the plan. So, although the homes depicted on the plans that the board is familiar with were conceptual, I just want to remind the board, as I'm sure you likely recall, that at the end of the last hearing, as a gesture of good faith, the applicant agreed to generally construct the homes in the approximate locations as shown on the revised plans. This application does eliminate a pre-existing non-conforming condition on Lot 50. I think this is rather significant. It's a lot coverage nonconformity, so the application will, in fact, constitute a significant improvement to what already exists on the overall property. The applicant concluded the July 17th hearing by presenting its professional planner, Mr. Alexander Doherty, and Mr. Doherty provided planning testimony under the C2 criteria supporting the bulk variance relief requested for minor deviations from the minimum lot width required for the proposed lots. In assessing the C2 criteria, and we went over this at the last hearing, the board should evaluate the benefits of allowing the lot width deviation in the context of the entire proposal. So the focus should be on the overall advantages of the proposal rather than just the specific deviation. And this is in reference to the Pullen case. The focus of a C2 variance is not on hardship, as is the case with a C1 variance, but on advancing the purposes of zoning. The zoning benefits resulting from the deviations must, of course, serve the community, not just the applicant. These advancements of the purpose of zoning, if demonstrated, represent a better zoning alternative for the property, and that's set forth in Kaufman v. Warren Township Planning Board. So, speaking to advancing the purposes of zoning, Mr. Doherty testified that the stormwater management proposal and reduction in lot coverage, which will bring the lot coverage into conformity with the township's ordinance, provides a public benefit under purposes A and B of the MLUL. These improvements, he testified, promote public safety, the general welfare, and help prevent flooding. Again, for the community. The applicant's willingness, for example, to exit the grinder pump agreement early benefits the general welfare by relieving the township from maintenance responsibilities ahead of schedule. With respect to Purpose C, and this is very important when you're considering a subdivision, excuse me, give me one moment, I'm sorry about that.
Mr. Silver, would you like to take a 5-minute break?
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. I apologize.
Court will be in recess for 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, we're going to respectfully request that this application be carried to a next possible date. I don't know if the board's in recess or they're still, I don't think a vote was taken or anything.
Do you,
Do you want to change the battle order?
do you want, we can move to another, we have one other item on the agenda. We can go to that if you guys want.
That'd be
Maybe
fine.
Just,
Thank you.
if
Thank
you can settle things down in
Yeah,
30 minutes.
that's a good idea. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Silbert.
I apologize again.
Do we need a motion to essentially? We're going to move on from our land.
Mr. Chairman, is a motion required to accept the request to suspend consideration of the case?
Yeah, well, just to be safe.
Suspend consideration of the case?
Who would like to make a motion
I'll
to
make a
suspend?
motion to suspend consideration of this case until later in this evening.
That's Councilman Kirsch and a second by Ashley Sikora. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Moving on this evening, we're going to move to our board minutes. We do have 3 sets of minutes up for adoption this evening. If I could respectfully ask, we'll need some order in the room, please. Okay, the first set of minutes up for adoption this evening or for approval are from April 16th, 2024, from the regular meeting. Are there any comments or changes to the record? Hearing none, who'd like to make the motion to approve the minutes from April 16th, 2024?
Make a motion.
That- Mr. Magor appears that he was present on that date. Mhm.
April 16th.
April 16th. Okay. So, Mr. Magora? Okay. Mr. Magora, who'd like to second that?
I'll second.
That's Ms. Sikora. Could I have a roll call, please? Yes.
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 April
sorry.
16th.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Any comments or changes to the record for the minutes from May 7th, 2024? Hearing none, who'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from May 7th, 2024? Mr. Pappas, could I have a second, please? That's Mr. Wang. Could I have a roll call, please? Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Ms. Probst, how did the third set of minutes look? Sure.
No pressure.
That's Ms. Sikora, that's Mr. Banga. Could I have a roll call, please? Okay, moving on the agenda this evening, we're going to switch our focus to, let's see, number 9. That's a courtesy review for the Bridgewater Raritan School District, the middle school classroom addition. That's Block 565, Lot 19, commonly known as 128 Marywood Road. And who will be representing this review this evening? Do we need the tripod?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Frank Massinio. I'm the school architect. My name is Frank, and I'm from Solutions Architecture. We are an architectural and interior design firm located in Verona, New Jersey. We've been the school architect since prior to the referendum, and we will be representing. I'm a licensed architect in the state of New Jersey, and we'll be representing the middle school addition for you tonight.
Good evening and welcome.
Can you all see the plans that are up? I don't know if you have them on your screens in front of you, but that's
We have our set and we can see what's on the screen. So.
perfect. So we're here to present the middle school addition that is being constructed with the sole purpose of allowing the district to provide full-day kindergarten in town. The primary schools currently house grades K to 4. This is going to be a multi-step process, which will move grade 4 up to the intermediate schools, thereby freeing up classroom space for the full-day kindergarten program. The second part of this phase is to bring the 6th grade into the middle school, creating a traditional 6, 7, and 8 middle school. By doing so, we will be freeing up the space in the elementary in the primaries to create the kindergarten and allowing a full middle school. Once the 6th grade moves up to the middle school, the projected number of students will be about 1,750, and it should be noted historically this building has had as many as 2,100 students when this was a 6, 7, and 8 with trailers at the time. So we're not creating a structure that's going to house any more students than what the building is capable of, especially while adding the addition. As you can see from the images, we are adding basically a 4th wing to the middle school in the corner of the building near the entrance road. The addition will be connected at 2 points, thus creating an enclosed corridor, so there's no real concerns from a security standpoint. The review of the building is that the review of the addition is that it's not as large as the other wings and is only enough to accommodate what the district needs at this time. So as we go to the blow-up plan, you'll see that there is an enclosed courtyard here. There is an enclosed courtyard here. There are 2 access points into the existing building, and the building will be a 2-story structure with connection links, and it will require the existing utilities from the existing building serve that structure. At the northernmost part of the addition, we are providing an access point, an entrance into the building, as well as a seat wall, and then a stair up to the upper roadway so that they can access the buses. At the southeast side, the other access point, there will also be a seat wall and gathering space, and a walkway that leads out to the roadway so buses can be accessed. The addition will stop short of the steep slope that comes into play on that hill, and will allow no major retaining wall work necessary in order to construct the structure. It also includes an electrical service upgrade that will accommodate the load of the addition as well as future air conditioning for the school. There will be a new fire service that will be located on the southeast that will feed the building and will be accessible through an underground meter pit. The electrical service and switchgear will be also on that southeast corner, providing access to the building. All utilities, as I said earlier, are being fed from the existing building, so everything is contained. As far as the floor plan of the existing of the new addition, the new addition will contain 13 classrooms, new classrooms. Those are what you see in the blue color. They will have one small group instruction classroom here. There will be 3 science labs. Those are in the yellowish color. A copy room for the staff, office, storage room. There will be 2 sets of toilets, 1 per floor, 1 elevator, 2 stair towers, and there will also be renovations to the existing, in the existing building for the faculty room toilets, men's and women's. There will be 2 classrooms renovated in the other south side of the existing building, as well as access points. Since we're taking over classrooms to provide access into the existing building, we'll be renovating to create an office and copy area and a smaller resource room. So that being the plan and the layout for the existing addition or the new addition, we're going to show some depictions of what this building will look like. Based on the renderings, this is a view from the top of the stair, top of the new stair near the drive. There will be this is the first view that you're going to see driving onto the property. So we will provide there's a glass area. The vertical columns that you see, that is part of the connecting link that connect the building together. It's a 2-story connecting link. On the left is the beginning of the addition proper. And then to the left of that, you'll see the Bridgewater Raritan School District brand. That's a sign that will be prominent. It will be illuminated, backlit, so that it'll be visible at night. As you come down the stair, as you come closer down the stair, you'll see that kind of student area where kids can convene. There'll be seating walls and accessibility into the addition. As you drive further around the loop from the upper level, you can see the alternate side. Those are the classroom, that's the classroom wing, and those are the classroom windows that you're looking at. Here's kind of a bird's eye view of the secondary link and the secondary access on the southeast corner. The architecture is similar so that the building, this blends in with the existing structure, yet provides some aesthetics. This is a close-up of that area on the southeast side, so you can see the plaza area, the small sitting area, as well as access points to the building and to the courtyard. The next image is a view inside the courtyard, as if you came through these doors. You now have a view of the courtyard, the classroom addition, as well as the connecting link at the back side. Another view of the courtyard looking at the major connector, the 2-story connector that connects the existing building. And then finally, we have a bird's eye view of that connecting link. The last component that we wanted to address is that there is the existing bus drop-off and pick-up area. So the existing loop road around the school, which runs here, can accommodate a total of 56 buses. Total right now that are currently being utilized are 36 buses for 7th and 8th grades. They expect to add 10 to 12 buses for the 6th grade, and this plan basically confirms that those buses will fit around the queue without issue. The parent drop-off will also continue to function as it currently does. However, it will be starting a little bit closer towards the fields in order to accommodate that space. That is the entirety of this presentation in terms of what this building will look like, what it includes, and as far as the utilities are concerned and site work. We do also have with us Keith Smith, who is our site civil engineer. If there are any questions that the council may have, we can certainly address.
Would Mr. Smith be giving any testimony this evening, or just simply questions? Very good. Any questions for Mr. Messineo?
Mr. Chairman, I have one. There was a comment made. I'm gonna get my directions wrong, so I guess I'll just try to point to it. Yeah, there.
Okay.
Pretty much. The location of the Bridgewater Raritan Regional High School logo, specifically. There was a comment that it would be lit and visible, and certainly I understand the importance of of identifying the building and the district. I just want to make sure that we do have some neighbors. Specifically, I believe there's one home that's on Merriwood, a couple homes that are on Foothill that are, whose backs are to your building. I just wanted to confirm that they would have no detrimental effect from that plan.
The intent is that it's backlit, so it's lit from the back, so you'd see a halo effect on it, but the lighting is not bright. It doesn't project beyond and throw beyond the facade of the building, so it shouldn't be an issue, and I'm sure the district will make sure that it is timed so that it is on and off at appropriate times.
So is it accurate to say, because I'm not immediately familiar with it, but there is lighting along the loop road, correct?
Correct.
Is it fair to say that even at night or in times of other times of darkness, that it would be no brighter than what is already seen by the light, essentially the safety lights from the perimeter road?
That is fair to say.
Okay.
Mr. Messineo, my kids are not in the middle school yet, so my question is, that access that we're seeing now on the screen, is that new bus access, or is that an existing point of drop-off or pickup?
That is, the bus does drop off at those locations, but this stair is a new stair to that addition.
Okay.
It does drop off further north down the road so that it ties into the existing addition.
Okay, so to the councilman's point, there is existing street lighting in that spot already for, okay. I heard a question down this way. I'll come back to my thought.
A question, generally when we develop anything for the school systems, what is our outlook? Is for 10 years, next 10 years, or next 15 years? Because the students' number will always increase. You mentioned about 2,100 for 6, 7, 8. And what is the rate of the student growth in Bridgewater School District?
At the present time, this addition was constructed based upon current numbers, as well as what we're seeing as a declining enrollment in terms of capacity. We design buildings, and we can only design buildings for the current need. The Department of Education will not approve a surplus if it doesn't currently exist, or if there's not a project that's been approved that will provide an influx of students. So even if we wanted to design for more, we couldn't by state law.
Do you have any facility for charging electric buses?
I don't know the answer to that question. Are we providing electric charging stations for buses? But the district doesn't currently have electric buses.
Okay.
There's no change in the bus. This is just a bus drop-off for them to pick up and drop off the students. It's not a bus depot.
Okay.
Parking area where the charges would be appropriate. They're only there for a short time while they pick up the students and then leave.
Okay. There's also no requirement for putting the charging then. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, actually, a comment was made that now links two parts of this meeting. You made the comment that you're designing for current needs, and I guess those that are reasonably anticipated based on demographic studies, correct?
Correct.
We had a presentation earlier talking about the housing plan element and fair share plan. I made a reference that the goalposts there seem to be changing. Bridgewater takes great pride in being compliant, and that's a credit not only to our current mayor, but also previous administrations. We've had that as a very high priority in this community. But for better or worse, new rules are expected in November, or October, November, sometime in that range. That would take multiple years to have effect, of course. Now, it's certainly possible that Bridgewater is provided with a certain number of housing units, affordable housing units that we need to provide. It's certainly possible that some number of those housing units are going to have school-age children in them. I guess I find it ironic that with one hand, Trenton is saying, you must build housing units, and with the other hand, they're saying, but you can't get out in front of the anticipated need of where to put these students when they need to be educated. You know, I make that statement. I don't know if you have a reaction to it or want to react to it. You know, it seems to me like there is a bit of a lack of coordination here, you know, because it would seem a shame if Bridgewater and the other 500 communities in 500 and something communities in New Jersey make plans, such as for additions like these, and then Trenton comes down with new rules, new regulations, new numbers, new expectations, and now all of a sudden a future Board of Education is saddled with a massive problem.
So I can't speak for the Department of Ed or the state of New Jersey for that matter. What I can tell you is we have had several referenda projects in the planning phases where the townships themselves have had several projects up for approval, not yet approved, before the council, before the planning board. They had not yet been approved. We proposed those to DOE. The Department of Ed will not approve anything or will not consider anything that has not been approved, because who knows what's going to happen. The development could not get approved ultimately. They could be building this and then the development goes belly up and it doesn't happen. So DOE's policy has been, and we've faced it before, that they will not consider numbers, even enrollment, potential enrollment, even if it's shown in the demographic study from stuff that hasn't previously been approved for construction. So that's what we've been faced. I can't speak to, I certainly agree with your point.
There's an irony here.
Yeah,
Is what I'm simply trying to say is that the school district appears to be in good faith and conscience, trying to do the best job it can to prepare for the future. Yet the future could change in an instant from additional regulations from Trenton.
Agreed.
Mr. Banker?
Sir, you had mentioned that 2,100 students that could get at some point in time their trailers.
2005 and 2006, there were 2,174 students in grades 7 and 8 in the middle school, or 6, 7, and 8, but that had trailers as well. So they were able to accommodate with trailers 2,174 students. This addition will provide that same surplus as the trailers did, but we're only putting 1,750 kids. So there's still a 500-something student surplus that we can, you know, the building would be able to accommodate.
The building will be able to accommodate the 2,100.
They had in the past. So they had in the past. So the way a school district accommodates additional capacity is they increase class size, or they include their schedule. In their schedule, more classes are filled per 7-day or 7-period day. So they have ways of controlling the capacity of a building through the use of the classrooms. The biggest issue for most school districts today for capacity and being able to have this influx is not that demographics are blowing up. It's that special needs and special ed limit the number of students that can go in a classroom. So in many districts, a lot of full-size classrooms, which are 800, 900 square feet, have 6 kids in them. So if we divide those rooms, we pick up a classroom. So these are things that we try to do in the course of planning for the building. But yes, the building at one point, 6, 7, and 8, did accommodate 2,174 students.
Okay, that was my question.
Yeah.
We can utilize that data point too, but it seems like what you're saying is that we're forecasting 1,750.
Correct.
But it can fit the 2,100.
Correct. Yes.
I did have a couple of questions. What schools feed into this middle school?
Say again?
Like what schools feed into this middle school? Like from an elementary perspective?
All of the primary schools that from grade 6, once they complete the primary, they move up to 6th grade. So every school feeds the middle school. Yeah. Yes.
And then you had mentioned, I think, 13 classrooms in this wing. Is that the same as the other wings?
No, this building is smaller. So this addition, if you look at the main site plan again, the image, this is the wing on that side, and then our wing is shorter. So it does have 13 classrooms. It does have 3 science labs in addition, and a small group instruction for instructional space. But again, that was based upon, when we're going for referendum and we're putting things before the public, obviously budget is a huge factor and huge concern, as well as the enrollments that we need to accommodate. So this was what we needed, and this is what we constructed.
And then this wing specifically will be for 6th grade specific, or is it going to be kind of multi-use for the various schools?
Did we have an answer on that? I think the district is working on how to reconfigure and reconstruct, but yes, this could be, most likely would be used 6th grade.
And then you had mentioned that AC, I guess there would be a new AC for the entire school or just the wing?
For the,
Air conditioning, you had mentioned that sometime early.
That's a separate project that's going to happen later on, like the upgrade of the whole AC system. But for this specific wing, like it's provided within.
It's going to be for, okay. And then you had mentioned that it would be using existing facilities. I guess, has there been any validation on the circuitry and like the pipes and everything that it will accommodate the additional usage?
yes, through the design of the addition, our engineers have evaluated the existing utilities and felt that they accommodate. We are doing an electrical service upgrade for the addition, but the balance of the utilities are amenable to the addition.
And then this is my final question. So my kids are not in elementary or middle school as of yet, but just from a security perspective, is that going to be a new entrance, the one that you had shown where the logo is going to be?
It'll strictly be, the middle school entrance will still be the middle school entrance. This will be an egress, an area for them to come in from the buses and come out of the buses. So it'll only be ingress, egress during drop-off and pickup times, but not during the day.
And there will be some kind of like security or...
Secure vestibule.
I have another question, Chairman.
Cowdery.
So since it's a brand-new building, coming from the techie side, will you also have a fiber connectivities to all, so that at least in futures, so that at least video streaming video or any other class, so-called virtual class can be obtained by different institution, or teachers can be easily shown in the classroom?
Yes, technically, we work with the district's IT provider who can provide that. All the classrooms will have conduit and feeds for wiring that can accommodate all of those spaces. Every room will have that technology availability.
Thank you.
Mr. Messineo, is there a power generator proposed on the addition?
There isn't.
Okay. Is that something that would potentially be considered in the future? And if so, would that be placed on one of the rooftops of one of the new proposed buildings?
It depends on the size of the generator and what we're accommodating. Most of these generators, if we're accommodating a wing this size, would be significant in size. So it would probably not be put on a roof.
And again, going back to capacity, I don't see it on the site plan here, but how will, if anything, how will parking change in relation to the upgrade on the site?
There's no change in parking that is there now. It's, again, pretty much just the school drop-off and pick-up will be accommodated by the outdoor spaces.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, two items have arisen. One is, and I'm not going to have my directions right, but the corner of the building, have you essentially located, no, of the addition?
This one here.
Yep, thank you. Glad to see we're on the same page.
No worries.
It's the talking with my hands that's working, right? You picked that spot because of the topography of the land, because you did not want to get into any engineering solutions with the existing hill. Is that accurate?
It's an accurate statement. We needed the spot. We knew that we wanted to add another wing similar to what was there. We also knew that we couldn't go to the roadway because we'd be cutting in significantly to the hill. So the location is in fact strategic.
Okay. And then finally, what is the anticipated timeline for construction and then opening of this wing?
Project is out to bid already, and anticipating construction by October with groundbreaking, and then 2 years.
2 years construction. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other questions?
Yes.
Mr. Magura?
With the elevation you showed the other day, previously, of the stairways, has any consideration been made for ADA access?
There is ADA access from the southeast entrance. This entrance is, the topography is so steep that it would be very difficult. The ramp would be significant in length and...
Lighting was mentioned before. I don't see any lighting in your elevation. And looking at the plan view, we're showing less than 1 foot candle on those stairs in some places. Is that sufficient?
I think the intent was to have the ambient lighting from the roadway plus the additional couple full-mounted lights out of that, and we would meet the, whatever the township standards are.
Is that it, Mr. Magura? Any other questions?
Mr. Chair, just a,
Mr. Atkins, sure.
what's the current number of classes for the BRMS
For the middle school itself,
middle school?
I don't have that information with me.
Do you know what the max capacity is for students currently?
It varies. So the max capacity based upon the DOE's long-range facility plan is a specific number. The max capacity based on district use could be another number, and that 2174, when it was grades 6, 7, and 8, would be, in my opinion, the max capacity of the building.
2174 currently?
Right. 2174 was what it was in 2005, 2006. Those numbers haven't been there. Right now, it's only 1,500.
Okay. And one question about the buses. How many buses are expected to be needed?
There
You said
are
maximum 54, but based on expected.
No, the maximum number of buses was 56. There are currently only 36 buses being used, and the school projects 10 to 12 additional for the 6th grade.
And so what would that bring it to?
It's 36, 46 to 44 buses.
Okay.
48.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Atkins.
Chairman, if I may ask one more question, please. Well, since we had a pouring rain today for about 1 hour, every road was flooded for at least time being. So in this particular case, do you think that flood water will basically go into the entrance?
I'm going to let my engineer respond to that one.
Yes.
Stormwater from the roof and stormwater from the slope are all being collected into a they're being collected into a subsurface system that's been sized to reduce the flow from the site itself.
Okay.
So we've accommodated that with drainage system. There's one actually in the courtyard and there's one exterior.
Okay, so that you already have taken into account then?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, perfectly honest, that you get some rainfalls, there's nothing that you can do, but we have provided for to meet the state requirements for the stormwater management.
Thank you.
Mr. Wang? I'm sorry, Mr. Chowdhury, would you finish with your point?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Height of the building?
It's around 20 feet.
20 feet. No, 30 feet.
It has to
30
be
feet.
more than 20.
30 feet. Tallest point.
Okay. How high is the light, the logo?
How high is the logo? I would say it's somewhere between 25 and 10.
25, 10. Do you know, compare with the road, you know, the building is,
The roadway as you come in is approximately 12 feet higher than the entrance. So the stairs themselves,
okay,
there's a changing grade of 12 feet from the roadway down to the bottom of the stairs.
So that's a view from the roadway as you go around the building,
okay, it's like a halfway of the height.
just above the roadway, so you can see it coming in.
So this building, the black part, the glass one, is taller than the existing buildings, right?
Yes.
Okay,
It steps up about 4 feet higher than the existing building.
4 feet. Are those, you know, the glass, I don't know what's inside. Is it going to be illuminated during the evening, the night?
The glass will be tinted, so you won't visually be able to see the students inside. So the glass will be tinted, and it will be illuminated at night, but since the glass is going to be tinted, it won't project like a glass light box, you know, a light box.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wang. Any other comments?
I just have one. You said construction is about 2 years. Was the anticipated change 3 years now?
Yeah, it would occur that following September. The intent would be to get it to land on the start of the school year. So 20 months to 24 months was our projection for how long this will take. So we want to make sure that it's ready for that next school year. You're welcome.
I'd like to ask our professionals if they have any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I only have 2 questions. One is related to the roof-mounted equipment that's shown in the elevations. I'm looking at sheet A 10.0, which shows the various perspectives. Yeah,
This
we
one here?
can focus on that one, yeah.
Okay.
And I didn't know if there was presently any screening of those on the you know, okay. And is there any screening that could be added to kind of shield any of those?
There is, but it's pretty typical throughout the rest of the building.
To have it exposed?
That they're exposed, yeah.
Okay. All right. I think the building is beautiful. I just think that could add, you know, an element of kind of screening something that's generally less nice looking.
Understood.
So just a recommendation.
Thank you.
And in particular on that kind of lower portion above the building connection, I think that might go very far just because it is a little more visible, closer to the, you know, pedestrian level.
Okay.
And then, as this might be nitpicky, but again, just a kind of question, is the perspective, I think, go back one further, showing the mounted signage, the building mounted signage, yes. Is that like kind of skewed? It's not straight? As in the logo, the letters are a little bit tilted, maybe 20%?
The logo is tilted.
That's intentional?
Yes.
Okay, is that just for like a more modern look?
It's the way their logo is imprinted on materials.
Oh, it's tilted?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that. Thank you very much.
Any questions, Mr. Wisniewski?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was just going to ask, well, the question was asked by Mr. Chowdhury, but I was just going to ask Mr. Smith to elaborate on the stormwater management facilities. And I just wanted to acknowledge that there is a fairly extensive system here. Certainly, I haven't reviewed the design in general, but you know, I trust that Mr. Smith designed it to the latest stormwater regulations and we're meeting all the reductions necessary.
Yes.
The increases in impervious surface.
Yes, in this case, there is no increase in vehicular service, so water quality is not an issue at all. As far as groundwater recharge, the soils here are not really accommodating the groundwater recharge, so our system has been designed to provide the reductions that are required for the 2, 10, and 100-year storm events.
And then I just had one follow-up question to that. Thank you. Where is I guess the question is there a discharge point for this system, or is everything sort of self-contained I'm
No,
not seeing that here.
everything, actually, there is a pipe that starts at 15-inch and ends at 18-inch at a head wall at the stream on the far side of the school. And it runs through the connecting corridor for each of the connecting wings. If you can see the upper, if you scroll up to the corner,
Above that.
Oh, here.
the school itself, the overall school.
Oh, here it is.
Corner of the, nope, no, almost there.
Come on up, come on up.
I was just curious about the discharge, where the discharge would be.
There is an existing head wall and pipe over it.
Okay, I just didn't see it on the plan here.
Pull it down. So this is where the pipe goes. So basically, there's an existing storm system that goes through here to an outfall at the stream.
Okay, very good.
And that is,
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wustersi. Mr. Messineo, I'm assuming you did receive the letter from our fire chief, Tom Scalera. Just if you had a chance to review it, as far as the placement of the fire department connection, you have no issues agreeing to those terms? Okay. Any other comments from our board or questions? Given that this is a courtesy review, we typically don't hold it open to the public, but if there are any comments from our public here this evening, please feel free to ask at this time. Hearing none. Mr. Peck, given that this is a courtesy review.
That's it.
You've been courteous?
Hopefully the representatives of the board, had their ears open and heard what the, suggestions and questions and concerns were, and be guided accordingly.
Much.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good luck. Okay, let's see if I can get back here.
That's just your oldest.
Making sure that we have everything. Okay, we're going to return to our application portion for this evening, and we'd like to resume, if that's okay with Mr. Silbert.
First of all, Mr. Chairman and board members, board professionals, and members of the public that are still here, I just wanted to apologize for what had happened earlier. We were appreciative that the board afforded us an opportunity to speak outside, and I'm very sorry for what happened. I don't really have words, but I'm very sorry about that.
Out of your control.
It is, unfortunately. I would ask that if the board, obviously we're before the board again, if the board would allow me to call our last witness and proceed forward with the application, we would like to do so. But ultimately, I understand with what had happened that it's up to the board here, so.
Please bring them forward.
Thank you.
If I may enter my appearance, Samantha Alfonso, on behalf of the neighbor, Sema Tekene. I did want to, on the record, request an adjournment based on the prejudice caused by the outbursts of the applicant.
Thank you very much.
So I was in the middle of my introduction, but
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, from a procedural standpoint, do we need to react to that, or is that just simply placed on the record as a request?
I think it's just on the record as a request. I'm not sure. I mean, I think if any prejudice was issued, I think it was actually to the applicant.
I would agree with that.
And certainly not to anyone not being the applicant, so.
I would agree.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Peck. Thank you, Councilman. Mr. Silbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was in the middle of my introduction, but I think it makes sense to just call Mr. Doherty, and he can take questions. I think he concluded his testimony at the last hearing, and it was not yet opened up to the public or to objectors' counsel.
That is where we left off. Bring him back, please.
And Mr. Chairman, since some time has passed, can we allow limited number of board questions. I know we had a bite at the apple. Some time has passed. Would you permit us to ask a limited number of questions, just so that we can kind of get back to where we were?
I think over the course of the last 3 hearings now, we've exhausted the question and answer, and I believe that I'd like to hear what Mr. Doherty has to say, and I think we're at that point where we're going to try to conclude this.
All right.
Yes, your point.
Good evening. Alexander Dowery, professional planner, recognized I still am under oath. As I concluded my last appearance here, testimony-wise, really we have a chance for the public to come up and cross. But for a quick synopsis, we are here for minor lot width. There is no other variances on the table. We've had a lot of deliberation, discussion about a lot of other development aspects that could happen on this property if it was viewed as one lot, because there are 2 lots in question that are under common ownership. If the other lot were to be developed separately, or if 3 lots were more appropriate, what those substantial detriments would be, and what those benefits would be, the essence of the C2 case law, and you know, where this came from. And we testified on the record to a Supreme Court case referred to as Kaufman that really looked at a very similar application that we proposed here. And I went through all the public benefits and the advancements of the municipal land use law, and I concluded that this has not undermined the intent of the zoning. This is a better zoning alternative, which is the essence of a C2, and that there would be no substantial detriment to the public good, and that the benefits of the application as a whole substantially outweigh any detriment, and that approval would be warranted. And we went down discussions about what some of these public benefits were, and I believe council was in the middle of kind of summarizing that as far as the current build-out being over lot coverage. These 3 lots would be under, the improvements with stormwater management systems, the moving of the buildings going forward to block any scenic views, the abundance of the replacement of trees and so forth, and the overall neighborhood continuity from a visual standpoint. And again, to kind of do a quick summary here, I think from a planning standpoint, these homes are more appropriate with this particular area in this immediate neighborhood on Mountain View Ave, and Mountaintop Ave, I'm sorry, and that a larger home would be certainly out of character here, and that was really the general conversation that we had, that the deviations in lot width, and for the record, I'll put them back on there, we're looking at a lot width of 143, 147, and 141. The requirement is 150. Again, those are the only variances on the table. The lot area is compliant. The side yard setbacks for conceptuals of where the building envelope would be would all comply. And this application brings with it state-of-the-art industry best practice engineering and development standards and modern living arrangements, and more in line with this immediate neighborhood. So I'll just kind of conclude with that, and we had it open kind of to the public.
Very good. So we'd like to open it up, with your permission, Mr. Chairman, to the public.
Would any members of the public wish to comment on the testimony just heard? I don't believe there's, If you could again, please state your name and address.
Thank you. I think the board had a lot of great questions at the last hearing, so I'm not going to belabor points, I promise. I do have just a couple of questions from the last hearing. The plans weren't changed at all? No revisions were made since the last hearing?
I don't believe so.
No.
Okay. So my understanding at the last hearing, and I don't want to testify at that, excuse me. Okay, I understand that you believe that the 3 lots is a better zoning alternative. Is that in, versus the 2 lots with 2 homes?
I do for this area, yes.
Is that based on the houses being the proposed 12,000 square feet, which would be the maximum.
I think it's based on a layer of the home's size and scale, but also the surrounding properties and their lot widths in relation. And though we do have 2 lots, and we keep having discussion that if there were 2 homes, these 2 lots are under one common ownership, he could sell the lot off, he could build the one lot in itself. And this, I think, when we look at this application for the overall betterment of the zone, this brings with it, just at the fringe, if you will, the 150 mark, with more palatable size homes. So the scale, the massing, and when we talk about the overall integration with the neighborhood and continuity of the neighborhood, I think would be more in line than 1 large home or potentially 2 large homes. So yes.
Okay. So let's say they're not 2 large homes, but it's 2 appropriately sized homes for the neighborhood. Would that be a better zoning alternative than the 3 proposed with the same appropriately sized homes for the neighborhood?
Say that again?
Would 2 appropriately sized homes for the neighborhood on the existing lots, right? So around 8,000 square feet, I think 6,000 to 8,000 square feet has been the testified number that would be about the maximum for this neighborhood that the market could support.
I want to say this, we're not proposing 2 homes, we're proposing 3 lots. If he wanted to do 2, he could do 2, and I'm sure he could make the size of the homes meet the max bulk requirements he could, or scale them down. But I think it's important to note, we're not proposing 2, we're proposing 3.
Okay, so for the benefit of the application then to the community though, right? I think that it was testified that it's really the aesthetic. How are we to be assured of that positive when we don't see it, when we're not seeing it, and we're being told, right, it could just be...
It's also the benefits come for this application, why we're here to kind of ask for those concessions for better stormwater management, to avoid building on the knoll, the hill, and to ensure that every other minute detail that kind of layers into the overall aesthetics and continuity of the neighborhood are looked at. When we look at the 2 homes, we wouldn't be here, and if you were to build a permit, you could build them where they want, and I think that opens the door for more of a negative impact, more of what my interpretation of the neighbors' concerns were. So it's a layered kind of approach about what brings it to a better zoning alternative than just visual, but certainly I think the scale and size is the first major benefit when we talk about what could be there and what we're proposing, and then with the concessions that the board imposed upon the application. This with the engineering to the site, I think certainly a lot more benefits here than just aesthetics at this point.
And did you study the average lot sizes in the neighborhood?
Yes, I believe we had an exhibit packet where we went over the lot sizes and lot widths.
Did you? Did you? Am I forgetting?
Yeah.
I may forget. I thought last hearing we weren't sure what the numbers were.
Yeah, the colored tax map. I think we marked it Exhibit A2.
That was a standalone exhibit, was just a tax map. We don't have it. I think it's here.
It's a township map, I think.
Yeah. It's all obviously public record.
We went into detail about establishing what was the neighborhood versus the bottom of the hill.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wanted to ask questions about that. I know the board members went through this a little bit last time too, but the lot width for 49. Because you're saying that the proposed lots at 3 lots at around 140 to 144 is going to be more consistent, right, in this neighborhood, the size and scale. I'm trying to understand how you got that.
If you look, I'm sorry, if you look at the tax map and their overall surrounding properties, they're yeah.
Are they all more than 1.25 acres?
For lot 49?
Just the neighborhood average.
We were looking at the lot widths as far as that, the neighborhood continuity and the overall, but certainly the lots go deeper. The scale and size of them, even with this 3-lot subdivision, we are oversized by lot area, which,
Or all of the other lots, right?
yeah, it's the lot width.
A lot of the narrow lots are actually deeper.
Just so the record's
Oh.
clear, so we're referring to Exhibit A6, which is the partially colorized tax map. And if you need to refer to it, we have it here.
Thank you.
Just want to make sure that was clear.
Thank you.
I think, Council, we had a very brief debate about which was more important, the lot width or the lot area. And I believe members of the board.
Go through both.
I
Let's
think
go
members
through
of the
both.
board brought that into question. And I think I had a different view than the town planner, where I said, in my opinion, lot area is the base, because it sets the stage for what your FAR would be, your impervious coverage and so forth. You get properties on curves, properties in cul-de-sacs, you get neighborhoods that have smaller lot widths. If the lot area complies, I think it sets the foundation, because we had a debate about when you're in the R40 zone, R50, R60, that lot width, and given these minor deviations in lot width, the fact that we comply with that the lot area, I think really sets the tone for, the appropriateness of, for this application.
So setting aside compliance though, right? For consistency, right, the argument is that the benefit to the community is that this proposal makes these lots more consistent with the neighborhood.
Well, I
You just-
believe they also testified, though, that the stormwater management that's being imposed was the benefit to the community.
And the reduction of the current
Thank you.
building lot coverage as well. Right now, the current existing conditions on the site are over, and these 3 lots, the yield would be less than what's there today. And with that being said, the lot area we do comply with, so we're really talking about the lot width. So I know some of these lots are undersized, and they have smaller lot widths. So we think, from a planning standpoint, from a development standpoint, that given these existing conditions in this neighborhood, coming around that bend, it's more appropriate and to comply with the lot area, but having that small deviation in lot width
And
versus
just to clarify, lot 50 is what doesn't comply with lot coverage, right? Because right now, the other lot is just wooded.
correct.
So overall, lot coverage is going to be decreased, even including the 3 houses, the driveways. So the
Surprised.
lot coverage right now on lot 50 is what? What's the number?
Currently, lot 50 coverage. Lot 50 coverage is 19.62%. The requirement is 18%.
And that doesn't account for
What's the
steep slopes.
proposed?
So the coverage is much higher after the steep slope
Slopes.
calculations. We don't have that number, but it's significantly higher than 19+%.
What's the proposed lot coverage?
So the proposed lot coverage is, yeah, I believe we're looking at 9.33%, 9.73%, and 9.79%.
That includes the houses and the driveways and everything.
Yes, and that,
9% on each.
Those are the maximum permitted under the steep slope calculation.
This was a question I had raised, I think, at the last hearing, and I don't mean to interject in between the cross-examination or introduce anything new, but I asked a question based on the bulk table and then the hillside development calculations. They didn't match. I don't know if we were going to get a revision. We didn't get a revision before tonight, but those don't match. The footnote in the table does say that the improved lot coverage and FAR are above as shown in the steep slope impervious and steep slope FAR calculations, but they're not. In the steep slope impervious for lot 50.01, it's 8910. For 50.02, it shows 7149. And for 51.01, it shows 7393, which is in order, 16.2%, 12.9%, and 13.5%. So I'd like that rectified, not between this, or maybe as a result of this cross-examination, but maybe Mr. Stiers can come up and just provide some clarification on that, because I don't think we got it at the last meeting.
Mr. Silbert, would that be acceptable for Mr. Stiers to return to the podium?
Mr. Chairman, are we finished with the public portion questioning? Because I have some questions.
Are there any other members of the public that wish to comment on this testimony just heard? And if we could, I'd like to have some comments on this testimony, please.
Hi, I'm Susan Willett. I live at 1871 Mountaintop Road. I know I mentioned this before, but I'm a little more nervous than I was before in the last session. I mentioned how hard it is when I know that there's rules about how many trees to cut down, and then people go ahead and do it anyway, and there isn't anything we can do about that. And I understand that, but just based on, and I don't mean to be personal here, but based on the outburst I saw earlier today, it doesn't look like compliant behavior to me, and it just makes me nervous. And I'm not throwing aspersions, and I feel bad about the whole thing, but that made me nervous about knowing that you guys are talking about, here's the rules you're supposed to follow, and we're trying to trust some people, and it doesn't seem very trustworthy.
Can I respond to that?
Yeah, sure.
Sorry, as the township planner, I just wanted to maybe, I don't know if this was clear at the last meeting, there are layers of protection after this board approves anything. A developer doesn't go on and just go develop their site without any oversight. They don't pull their permits and then just go get to build. After any hearing where there's an approval, they have to go through what's something called a resolution compliance process, meaning that they have a resolution which has certain conditions. The township professionals, the town engineer, the town planner, and any other professionals that are involved, including fire, health department, et cetera, DEP approvals, road opening, anything like that is included in a resolution compliance. Very extensive process, and that sets the stage for any revisions they have on their plans from the results of this meeting are complied with on paper.
Right.
When they go and get any permits and they start building, there's inspections. The engineering department has inspectors that go out and make sure everything's happening as it's shown on the plans. Every single tree that's supposed to be protected stays protected. Every tree that's supposed to be planted gets planted. Driveway locations down to where they're shown on their final plans. So there are levels of protection that I want to offer that it's not just someone's going to go off and it's a matter of trust. Certainly not. They have to post inspection, escrow afterwards. If that's deficient, we stop working, they stop working until they, pay for the process. So there are layers from, the township professionals, the construction department, building department, that make sure that everything moves forward as it should.
Okay. Thank you for that, and that makes me feel a little better. The only other question I have, and this is just kind of, I'm sorry if this is repetitive or redundant from the last time, is that works only up until the house is bought by somebody, right? They can, in theory, they might have rules, but they can kind of do what they want, right?
Not really. I think you'd mentioned people doing things that they're not supposed to be doing. That happens all the time.
Yeah, you can't police that. I understand that.
You as the neighbors can certainly, you don't want to snitch on your neighbors, but you can go up to your neighbor and say, you know, I see you're paving your driveway. Did you check with the zoning department? You can start to, you know, make sure your neighbors are good neighbors by asking questions like that. Oh, you're removing some trees. Did you get a tree permit? Not to be a bad neighbor, not to be a nosy neighbor, but to do those things, because you wouldn't know if they got a tree permit or not unless you ask them. And you don't want to go call the zoning department and say, hey, someone's pulling trees down, I don't think they got a tree permit, when maybe they already did. So to be a good neighbor, you can go up and say, hey, you know, I'm very concerned about the stormwater, I'm very concerned about the tree canopy, I'm very concerned about XYZ. Did you do this? Did you do that? And I think that's a way to be a good neighbor. And if you feel like they're, you know, continuing to do things they shouldn't do, then you call the zoning department, and we have a zoning officer, and we do enforcement for things that, you know, shouldn't be going on.
Okay, all right, thank you. No problem.
And Mr. Chairman, on this matter, if I may, you know, the fail-safe at the end of the process is a certificate of occupancy. If, you know, you could have a house that's 99.9% built, or they think it's 99.9% built, and if things were not followed, that certificate of occupancy is not going to get issued. So that's really like your end protection, if you will. And then as properties turn over to a new owner at a later time, the property needs to be what is accurately portrayed. And if it is not, well, then that's where there are instances where after the fact, homeowners need to potentially come before the zoning board because something is not in sync.
Thank you, Councilman. Other members of the public?
Yes, Barry Walker, 1699 Mile Top Road. My one concern is the fact that I think you mentioned this evening about water and the rain, all the roads are flooded. Those two houses which are built where I think the current owner lives in, right now, if you were driving that road the next 2 days, half the road is covered in a large pond, about 30 feet long and about 10 feet wide.
Excuse me, sir, just so you know, this portion of the meeting is so you can ask questions.
Okay.
And for his testimony. Then there'll be an opportunity.
So is there a plan to alleviate the water flow onto the road, which is currently happening in the existing development that's there? And this is part of the subdivision of that, correct?
So, part of this application, one of the benefits I testified to was the stormwater management that would come with this application, which currently, as you just mentioned, is not on site. And I testified at the last hearing that my professional colleagues before me set that stage for me to testify of the benefits that come. So the engineer had testified in great detail what those stormwater management requirements
Did that engineer go up there under conditions like we had today?
I'm not the engineer. I don't have the answer.
I'll just ask the question since you're testifying to that. And did anyone go up there and they see the existing conditions, which actually might be there tomorrow or the next day?
Those conditions would remain with the current condition.
Yeah, but as an engineer, you should be trained to look at.
I'm a planner. Are
you an engineer?
Planner.
He's a planner.
Are you an engineer? No. Okay. So allegedly, your engineer said that this could happen. So I'm just asking, the engineer, I mean, there's engineering in facts, and there's engineering in that you go witness what's happening. You know what I mean, when there's flooding. I walked into the building here at the township building, and the front foyer area was flooded. So in the time. So just asking if the engineer has done any studies in that way.
Yeah, the engineer's already testified as to the stormwater management plan at the last hearing.
So he can't call him back to answer questions?
There's really actually no need to. We're not going to keep relitigating the same issues over and over again.
All right, so they.
Testimony. One thing though to keep in mind is if they came and just did 2 lots, a minor subdivision, didn't need any variances, there'd be no stormwater management put in place. There'd be no conservation easement. There'd be no stipulation as to where the homes would be located on the lots, all of which they've agreed to do. So there actually is, I mean, I think there's been a lot of benefits that have been portrayed by the testimony. So it just seems we're going in circles.
I understand that.
And we've had ample testimony and stipulations made on the record to address these questions, none of which, you know, if we went to, again, to 2 lots, none of these would be made. There'd be none of these protections to the public. So,
Mr. Chairman, can I ask some questions?
Mr. Pappas?
Mr. Walker's finished. I have questions.
I'm not finished. I was interrupted by the attorney, but thank you very much for asking, but I was done. In the stipulations, I understand that. There was a previous subdivision done right next to it, and you mentioned that there were rivers in it. That water is an issue. So moving forward, I understand this is questions to them. I'm posing to you that in consideration, you might want to think about things like that in the plan, because I recommend everyone on this board to drive up there tomorrow sometime or the next day, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Thank you.
I don't know if you were here the last time.
The previous two times.
The previous two times when, if it was left as is and they built one home or two homes, there would be no stormwater
Understand
management
that.
regulations that the state would require, the township require. With this one, it triggers more stormwater management than what would happen if it were to stay.
Understanding.
I do understand your concerns,
Yeah.
believe me.
What I'm saying is the existing one that was done previously, which I
Yeah.
think would have triggered, maybe they've changed since then, is not adequate.
Mhm.
That's what I'm indicating to you, even in the current trigger that has to happen, that may not be adequate enough in this scenario. And I recommend that they be checked.
I just want to just really just water this down, no pun intended. What we're trying to illustrate is, though on paper, 3-lot subdivision, 3 houses may seem like a lot going on, and there's some things that we need to get through about existing conditions, concerns neighbors have about the trees, looking down on a Twin Oaks Road, the knoll, the views in that regards. But what we're trying to illustrate is, though this sounds like it's a heavy development, it's less intensive, less detrimental than what currently is there or what could be there. We talk about tree removals. I believe I testified last time, there's a net of 70 trees coming on site, trees and various shrubberies, of that regards. The stormwater management, the impervious driveways we talked about that would be deeded into the properties and the various systems in place. It on paper or to your ears, 3-lot subdivision sounds a little too much. But one house.
I'm not disagreeing with the development.
Is a little bit more detrimental than what we're proposing. This is a softer application for that neighborhood.
I understand the application. I've had subdivisions done where I live very close and can be subdivided again. I'm not complaining about that. I'm concerned about the management of it, and once it gets done, it is actually going to work. That's my question. What you're planning and what's engineered when it doesn't work, because it's currently not working in the previous plan that was done. So that's all. I'm allowed to ask that question. Correct.
I think
What the engineers, if they have done to the extreme levels as the 8 inches of rain we're going to have the next 3 days.
Right, and I think the engineers are on top of that.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Allegedly.
Yeah.
When
Mr. Peck, I do believe we also have as a condition that our township engineer is going to be working closely with the applicant, should this application be approved.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Any other members of the public? Okay, that closes the public portion for this witness. Mr. Pappas, you had a question.
Yes. Mr. Dougherty, you just, this might be a slight reiteration, but an expansion of questions that I've asked previously. The lot width that is proposed for these lots is the reason for this application before this board, correct?
Correct.
Okay. It's not the stormwater management plan.
Correct.
Correct. So, a lot is being said about the stormwater management. That's been prompted by the application, but that's not why you're here.
Correct.
You're not here to talk about stormwater management. You're here.
Well, that's not. We're here to talk about everything, and that's a benefit.
The reason, what prompted the application is the request for relief from the lot width.
No.
That's not why you're here. Why are you here then?
We're here to a major subdivision.
For 3 lots that are less than the 150-foot wide requirement, correct?
We would be.
That's a yes or no.
I can't testify, but I just.
Well, then let him testify. I'm asking him.
Here, no matter what.
I'm asking him. So is the reason for the application a variance that is being sought for the lot width that is less than the requirement in the zone?
No, we're here for the subdivision, major subdivision, and it comes with 3 minor variances for lot width.
Okay, but it is the variance that's prompted the.
You would review this application with or without variances.
Okay, understood. But you are asking for relief for lot width?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Dougherty, I think at the last hearing, you spoke a lot about the comparison of lots in the neighborhood. This is a zone that requires 150-foot lot width, as I said a moment ago. is there any detrimental effect? Is there any reason that having two conforming lots of 150 feet each and one lot less than 150 feet, is that detrimental to the zone plan of Bridgewater Township? And then I'd like Ms. Sarma to answer that question too.
Could you restate that question?
So you're proposing 3 lots that are in the subdivision that are under the 150-foot wide width requirement in the zone. My question is, I had spoken about this at the last meeting, you could have presented an application with 2 lots that are fully conforming at 150 feet width, and then only one lot instead of 3 lots that are non-conforming with the 150-foot wide lot requirement. So my question to you and then to Mrs. Sarmat is, is there anything detrimental to that type of subdivision application? To the township's zone plan, because you all tend to talk about zone plan and these, phrases that you all use.
I think we did discuss this in great detail, that the aggregate of these 3 lots being slightly under 150 would not be visually impairing and detrimental to the fabric of the neighborhood, as to the one lot standalone, that given that it'd be, next to the 150s would be a lot more noticeable, a lot more visually impaired. And, I want to remind the board that this was the original proposal that the applicant had put together, and that with discussions with the professionals, that this was a better alternative. And I just want to reiterate, this again is exactly kind of how the Kaufman case played out as well.
Okay. That was the previous planner, and she offered her opinion, but then she didn't have the authority to grant the subdivision approval. That's why you're here.
Correct.
So the professionals offer their advice, and most of the time we adhere to their advice, but the board does have the ability to make a decision that may or may not be exactly what you as a professional or as the board professionals offer. That's just a comment. So if there were 2 conforming lots of 150 feet each, the width of the lot to the I guess the west, the existing lot is, again, how many feet wide? The adjoining property, how many feet wide is that lot? To the west of the subject property. The existing lot, the neighboring lot. What's the width of that lot, the frontage of that road?
A lot number?
The one to the left, 49.
49.
Thank you. I think that's the objector, one of the objector's lots.
225?
225? Okay. And then the lot to the east, what lot number is that?
52.01.
52.01. What's the lot frontage on that? I'm asking Mr. Doherty.
Yeah.
What's that?
106.4.
106, okay. So I guess my thought here is, and I'd like to propose, that there be a change to your submission that would allow for 2 conforming lots on the western part, and that the new lot on the eastern part would be, one adjacent to that 106-foot lot would be the one that would be non-conforming. That's my request for your consideration as one board member.
I'd like to concede that the applicant is 100% willing to do that. And in the first hearing, I said that if the board has a preference as to which lots to make non-conforming or not, the applicant is 100% willing to do that if the board feels that's best. I just wanted to say that the building envelope, when you're building a fully conforming lot, will obviously expand, but the building setbacks will stay the same no matter, that won't have an impact on the setbacks. So I just wanted to make sure the board was aware of that, but I did want to make that concession that we're open to working with the board on that 100%.
I'm not going to offer testimony as far as the detriment, I don't think. I think we did, at the last hearing, have a similar discussion about, more so about the numbers, about what the relief would be if it was the scenario you just described, where there were 2 conforming lots and 1 non-conforming, what the deviation from the lot width would be for that 3rd lot. And for me, you know, no matter which way you cut the lots up into a subdivision, even your scenario versus what they've proposed, it shows that they can't do a 3-lot conforming subdivision. So, you know, it was mentioned that no matter what, they would be before this board for a major subdivision, and also no matter what, they'd be before this board with the variance relief, whether it be for 1 lot, 2 lots, or 3 lots. What I will say is their only variance relief is related to the lot width, and I think you'd ask a question about, I don't remember what the specific question was. I know you'd posed it to myself and Mr. Doherty, and I had mentioned that I didn't feel like there was one bulk standard that was more important than any others. It was really a combination of how all those things interact, again, because lots can be bigger than the minimum in a zone. They can be less than a minimum in a zone, and so can the setbacks and everything like that. And so, you know, I'm not going to provide any testimony, like I said, about, you know, the detriment. That's the proofs required by the applicant. But as far as how the lots were laid out, I think the applicant has presented them in a way that they think was, you know, symmetrical in some way, that these 3 lots would have, you know, less visual impairment. I don't necessarily disagree with that in having them all be the same, or, you know, a similar deviation rather than one with a much larger deviation, because that 1 lot will, may have a visual look that isn't congruent with the others. It may. It's hard to tell if 17 to 20 feet, well, no matter what, it'll be more than what's proposed right now. So
Depends upon what's built on that property, too. If you have a you know, house that is appropriate to scale with the lot size or the width, and I'm sure if you drive up and down that road, you'll see houses of different shapes and sizes, and some of it is related to the width of the lot or some other consideration.
yeah, I think there's a few unknowns with that, as far as we don't know if these are going to be built. You've seen other, you know, newer subdivisions along roadways that have very, very similar looking homes as part of those, like, you know, a few lot subdivision. So if they were all going to look of the same character, of the same materials, of the same style, then it may look odd. If they are going to be built individually for individual buyers of the lots, then they could be, you know, there is a very varied architectural style, very varied home sizes, setbacks along mountaintop across the street, very different from the south side of the street. So I don't know what's to come with that. They've, you know, testified that this is really related to a subdivision, so we don't have much say over the architecturals and design, and they're exactly right. But we can really only look at right now conceptually the footprints and things like that. So no problem.
Mr. Chairman, I have just a couple questions, because I want to go back to an area we talked about last time, and I think I need to correct some numbers.
Are these questions going to be?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. You know, we talked about how much house can you build on this combined lot, and I believe that I took a simple 15%, rather than in reality, I need to do a hillside development reduction. So I just want to make sure that that's clarified. We can't build 24,000 square foot a house. We can build, you know, it's closer to 6 and 6 is to about 19,000 foot a house. You know, I'm just, by that number, I'm just adding up the 7,001, the 6292, and the 5957. So I just wanted to first clarify that. The second is, I want to just confirm my understanding that under the plan that's on the table, the house that's, I guess, closest to lot 49 would be up to 7,001 square feet. However, if we were to do nothing, you know, you were just to try to get a building permit for that lot that's there, I'm going to presume for a moment that the maximum floor area ratio is going to be something between 12.75 and 11.37, something between those numbers. So just for the sake of argument, I took the halfway point, which is 1206, and I calculated that you could build a house on existing lot 50 of 10,000, over 10,000 square feet. Again, we're rounding off, you'd have to look at the hillside calculation. So I guess if there's a concern of the resident at lot 49 or for future residents of lot 49, and they were concerned about the size of the home and the placement of the home on lot 50, could the argument be made, this is the plan you should be supporting 100%? Because if you do nothing, you could build a 10,000 square foot house anywhere you want in the building envelope. Under this plan, you can build a 7,001 square foot house, and we've discussed a voluntary reduction of the building envelope. Am I accurately seeing this?
I'm going to answer it just because I don't think it's, I think you're asking about a stipulation or a consent. So, as far as the building envelope, we agreed to comply with the township's ordinance 100% as far as the construction of a home on any of the proposed lots. So, your question is in the existing condition, can a home be built that would far exceed the size of what a home would be built, assuming this application gets approved? The answer is, of course, yes. As of right, the property owner could build a substantially larger home. This is the board's opportunity to control development on this property. If not for the board and if not for the application, the developer or the applicant could go as of right and build 2 mansions or 1 mansion. So I see this as an opportunity for the board to limit the development, but of course working within the confines of the ordinance.
So
To answer
we've talked about, I'm sorry, go ahead.
To answer your question, your initial question, this should be the application you support. The answer is yes.
All right. And we've talked about the front yard setback likely being somewhere in the 90 to 100 foot range. It could be, again, on the existing conforming lot, it could be a lot further from the street as long as you're still in the building envelope. And that house, depending upon where it's put, could be a substantial detriment to the view of the neighboring homeowner. Okay. Going back to the square footage of the homes, because there seems to be not a difference of opinion, but I want to make sure everyone in this room and everyone associated with this is aligned. The numbers that we're seeing is 7,001, 6992, and 5957 as the 3 square footages. Does that include basement?
No, the dwellings are conceptual. I think what Mr. Steyer's testified to was that the steep slope floor area ratio calculations were showing what the maximum floor area could be.
Okay, because I want to make sure that I want to make sure everyone's aligned. That, assuming we're talking about a 2-story house, that means between the first story and the second story, finished space, it could be up to those numbers.
I don't have the township's definition for FAR. The reason why I'm bringing that up is because certain space, depending upon the ceiling height.
Well, that's exactly what I want to kind of get out during this hearing, so that there's no miscommunication later. I want to make sure that there's full alignment of whether a basement would count or would not count as part of that, so that you don't have a situation where you've built a house, and then at a later time the homeowner comes to the building office saying, hey, I want to finish my basement, and they're told, hey, you can only finish some of it. So I don't know. Okay.
We're not seeking anything to do with that this evening.
Okay, so what you're saying is, when you go to submit plans and the FAR is calculated, if somehow, you didn't think the basement was included, but it is, and there's a problem, then you'd go back to the drawing board, pun intended, to somehow come up to a point where the whole home, by the definition of FAR, meets the 7,001.
That's correct. And what I've been saying, and I don't need to keep saying it, is that the intention is to comply with the township's ordinance. There's no intention to create homes that do not comply. So we want to meet the standards that the governing body has set forth and
Okay.
continue to abide by.
Because I believe that the two places that are going to determine whether it's a basement or is a cellar, by our definition, is going to be the height of the basement, and the other is going to be whether or not, how much of the basement area is below grade. I think those are probably the two things that are going to indicate whether those get calculated or not.
Your ordinance talks about cellars, your ordinance
Okay.
talks about basements, but ultimately, I remember the ordinance saying that it has to do with whether the ceiling is above, I believe, 7 feet, and if it's habitable, it gets counted towards FAR, even if it's underground. So I don't have the ordinance directly in front of me. I understand the questions that you're asking.
Okay.
I'm just simply saying that we have no idea whether your home is even going to have a basement. We just know it's going to comply with the ordinance.
Okay. All right, very fair.
While we're on the topic, because this is very similar to that impervious coverage issue, just to make the record clear, I appreciate Mr. Kirsch, getting some clarification and asking those questions. Again, there are things that need to be rectified and reconciled on the plans where those numbers don't match. I'm not necessarily sure that the numbers that were just thrown out as far as the max are actually, I think they're above the maximum actually, pursuant to the FAR table on the cover sheet of the plans. So I just need some reconciliation of what's the correct number from the applicant. And as
If there's a misinterpretation, a discrepancy between the two, the steep slope maximum will hold, and I will fix it on the plan as a condition of approval.
all I ask is that a condition that the plans will be revised so that they accurately, either the footnote is accurate or the table is accurate, whatever it is, just so when we're going through reso compliance, we have some idea of where to look. Thank you.
We have that as condition of approval.
Already got it.
Okay.
Yep.
And then to kind of dovetail on what was said earlier by Mr. Pappas, I guess ultimately we may be left with a decision, assuming that we're willing to grant relief. The two flavors of relief, one would be the 150, and the 133. The other would be the more even 143, 148, 142. In the event that we go with the 150, 133, we're creating a situation where, two homes are larger. One home is definitely not going to be able to be as large, but that happens to be the home that's sitting next to other homes that are not quite as large. So I guess the question that, we would have to consider is, should that home be smaller because then it's more similar to the neighbors to the east, or should these three be seen as a block together? And thus the reason why they would be of similar size because, the lot widths would be similar. So, I'm not sure exactly how that's going to square out, but I think that's really what we're talking about. Is assuming we're going to grant relief, and those are the two flavors. It's, are they equal, or are these two equal, but the one to the east is more like its neighbor further east?
Well, in theory, the homes still could be the same size with lot widths different.
Well, when I say the same size, I mean maximum size. I mean, someone could choose to make the homes the same,
Right.
correct? I'm talking about maximum size.
Coverage will be less, coverage will be different.
Okay, thank you.
If I may, I referenced the bend in the road because Lot 49's property line ends right at that bend. So you kind of come around this bend and then starts the new. So though we're talking about next to it, it's not a straight, line where you can step back and see it. There's a curve in that road there. And this is why I put a great emphasis on purpose I of the MLUL, and I think we had a unique conversation about a sub-neighborhood identity character, and I'm not sure if that's where you were going with the physical features, but I just, would like to reiterate that I do think what we proposed here is aesthetically more pleasing, particularly as you come around that bend, there is that distinctive separation.
So that's your argument for the three relatively equal lot widths as compared to the two conforming and the one less conforming.
Yeah, you would put that, what you were saying is you would put that next to lot 49, it'd be nearly 25 feet smaller in that bend, and then come back to the larger lots again. So that's.
No, I don't think that's what, I think if any of the lots are gonna be undersized, it's gonna be the one to the east, not the one to the west.
I thought you were referring to lot 49 this whole entire time.
No, I'm again, assuming that the numbering is right, I guess I'm referring to lot 50.
2.01?
52.
0.01.
You know, whatever that lot is going to the east.
Okay, that's where you're proposing that smaller lot? Okay.
Well, I think so. Yeah.
You were referring to it because the other lots next to it had a smaller lot. Correct. I understand.
All right. And I just want to make sure that your comment that you made about conforming, other than the potential for lot width being non-conforming, everything else you are committed to conforming, including if we end up with that 150, 150, 133 solution. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for Mr. Doherty? Oh, he's still sworn in. Mr. Silbert, do you have any other witnesses or any other testimony that you'd like to present? Ms. Sarmed, have we satisfied?
Thank you. I just had one other item that I think from the last hearing was unresolved, and that was a question for Mr. Atkins to the applicant, I think to Mr. Stiers, related to the tree removal calculations. As I had noted, looking through the tree calculations, there was at least one tree that was not identified on the removal, which calls into question exactly what Mr. Atkins was asking. And I don't know if that was ever reconciled. And I'd like to see what the applicant has as far as that. It's actually, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Does that satisfy?
As long as it's a condition, and that the applicant is willing to comply with the tree ordinance, removal and replacement, then that's fine by me. Thank you.
Mr. Wisniewski, are there any unresolved engineering questions from Mr. Burr's report?
No, I believe we heard a lot about I'm sorry, I always forget the microphone here. We heard a lot about stormwater, certainly, and, we understand that these are sort of prototypical lot development plans. And one item that I think I did hear mentioned was, once a plan is put forward to develop each of these lots individually, those stormwater management designs would have to be reviewed by Mr. Burr, possibly by me, assisting him. But certainly, we'd like to make sure that, any proposed stormwater management facilities, and I think this is what I heard before, this evening I heard, that those improvements would also include and go along with, an operations and maintenance manual that would be recorded at the county, as well as on file at the township, and be available to the homeowners, indicating which of those stormwater management facilities are ultimately constructed on the site, and that those would be basically go along with the home as part of the approval, sort of in perpetuity, to address these stormwater concerns, which obviously are ongoing and becoming more and more amplified over the years. I think that was really the largest thing that we were looking at, certainly in addition to the tree removals and replacement requirements, because that also does go a long way to addressing stormwater and runoff. I think those were the two main items that I wanted to touch on.
Very good. Mr. Peck, have we satisfied all conditions and requests?
Yeah, except you do have to give the public a chance to comment generally on the application.
With that being said, are there any members of the public that do wish to comment on the general application?
Dana Caparosa, 65 Twin Oaks Road. Just confirming that conservation easement, because I'm at block 718, lot 64 right below. Just confirming that's part of it?
Yep.
Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Caparosa. Anybody else?
So I'm Sematek, and I live in lot 49.
I'm sorry, I have to object to this. She's represented by counsel, so I believe actually, Mr. Peck, she can make a.
I think she can make a general comment. She can't cross-examine your witnesses, but I think it's kosher.
I promise not to cross-examine. I just wanted to point out that Mr. Gerardo lives in lot 52, and his next-door neighbor is lot 5201. Those are the two properties that are 106 frontage. Those are two properties that have been subdivided in the past. I think that's why Mr. Walker was bringing it up, because that's where all the water is accumulating on the street. So if there was any stormwater requirement for that subdivision, it failed miserably. So just because we're talking about stormwater management in this venue doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to be successful. I just want to point that out. The other thing I want to point out is that starting from lot 48, which is my next door neighbor, if Mr. Gerardo and his neighbor's lot was not subdivided, starting with my neighbor, it's 150 feet frontage, mine is 225, the current house is 225, the vacant undeveloped lot is 207, the two subdivided properties would have been 212, and then 177. So that expansive road has very generously sized properties on it, even though we've talked about, other areas of Mountaintop Road. Mountaintop Road is a really long road. It goes on forever. So I just wanted to give you like a visual of what's going on. It's a very rustic, natural environment. And so my objection, Mr. Kirsch, you were mentioning, building a massive house. First of all, I don't think a massive house, I think the houses are being built for, investment and resale. So I don't think building a massive house is going to generate the resale that it needs to generate. Putting a unusually sized house on a lot is probably not going to be attractive to a buyer. But my objection wasn't how big his house is next to mine. It was about just putting more concrete and hardscaping in the neighborhood, because the beauty of Mountaintop Road, it's like going to a botanical garden. How many houses do you want to see in a botanical garden? That's really the... So, however, wanting to be neighborly, understanding that there's some more concessions that could be made because we're in front of a council, and by them asking for the 3 lots, I actually reached out to Mr. Gerardo several times to try to get an agreement so that it doesn't take away from the beauty of the neighborhood. And one of the things I asked for was that he didn't cut down trees unnecessarily, especially along Mountaintop Road, and that he would only be removing trees that were in the immediate way of the driveways he was building. I asked for the 3 houses to look different architecturally and style-wise, so it doesn't look like a development area. So I actually sent him a list. The last time we were here, he indicated that he might be open to accommodating my request. I asked him not to get any closer than 40 feet from my property, even though he's 60 feet away right now. Anyway, so I've been trying to work with him, understanding that he's got goals he wants to accomplish, but understanding that I moved into this beautiful area with the intention of enjoying the natural preserved environment that it, accommodates. So that's what that's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Excuse me a minute. Just for your information, I've been to that property 3 times now.
Which property? Which property?
The property that's being discussed right now.
Uh-huh.
I've been there 3 times, and I was there this morning. So we are familiar with the area, I believe.
Okay, I hope you agree with me that it's got that natural. Yeah, thank you.
First of all, just want to say thank you, guys. You're asking really good questions, and I appreciate that. I came in here not expecting you to care, to be honest, and I've seen that, so I really do appreciate that. As you make your decision, I just want to say that I think what we all can agree on is we want to preserve that natural area. I want to preserve as much as possible the deer and the groundhogs and the skunk and the raccoons and the flying squirrels and all these really beautiful creatures that I know were there. And I've watched disappear as people have degraded some of the natural elements of that area. So as you make your decisions, if you could just keep that in mind, how important it is to keep that natural area as pristine as it can be, yet still allow people to live there and build houses, et cetera, et cetera. So, thank you.
Good evening again, board members. I just want to summarize the points here. Ms. Tekene has tried, as she indicated again to you personally, just for reasonable points, for the buffer between their properties, for trees to be protected and to remain. She's asked for what the height they would be planted at, and we did not receive a response. She did not receive a response to that bullet point list that was specifically requested. So that's why I'm here, to ask for assurances for Ms. Tekene that those reasonable points are considered as part of the resolution. One that I think hasn't been included yet is keeping those, the uniqueness, right? Some different colors or architectural differences. I don't know how that could be worded. Perhaps your planner could assist with that.
Ms. Sarmat, I believe she's looking to see if we could put some type of condition that provisions them to, or forces them to put 3 different styles of homes on these lots.
I mean, as part of the variance, the board can impose conditions usually related to the variance, not.
Okay with it, though.
What was that?
We're okay with it.
As long as the
Wanna build 3
applicant's
different
okay
homes.
with it, then
So we concede.
I think we'll have to work probably with the applicant when the resolution is drafted to figure out the right language that
There's different
captures it.
architectural styles for the lots.
Yeah, we'll just make sure that the homes don't look the same. They'll be designed differently, different floor plans and different styles. That's totally fine with us.
As long as the applicant agrees, then that's fine.
Anything else, Ms. Alfonso?
The only other item is protection for the mature trees along the road, and I think you might already have that in your plan, but I just want to make sure it's in the.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to comply with the ordinance as far as tree removal, tree replacement. I think the plans that were presented to the board already show that we're trying to preserve those street trees. That was a major, that was one of the applicant's major intentions were to preserve them so as to not have to provide new street trees. So I think we're naturally abiding by that. I don't know if I'd want to concede to a condition to that, but I don't think it's material because we're going to comply with that. don't want to remove the street trees. We have to have street trees.
I think you testified that you preserve as many as possible.
Yes, we did. That's the case. That's what we intend to do.
Mr. Chairman, since this is our chance for collaboration, I just want to make sure that as a board, we can consider as many accommodations as possible. Again, in the spirit of collaboration. So I know one of the things that was of concern was style of the house. We've addressed that. Street trees, we've addressed that.
And I think the board has addressed all of her other
Okay.
concerns here.
Okay, so you know, from the standpoint of the applicant, again, you know, this might be an unusual question. Is there anything more that needs to be placed onto the table at this point where we can collaborate?
The 39.9 is where it
No,
is now,
we'll
right?
comply with the township setback requirements.
And the setback requirement is what?
Shown now on the plan is 30, I'm sorry.
I know what they're shown on the plans, but I'm not going to encumber the property to create harsher setback requirements just
So this
because.
is where, right, I don't feel assured because the applicant says that these are conceptual placements and then tells us we should feel comfortable because this is the placement that is going to be. It's the placement that's.
Let me suggest a compromise here. So first of all, what is the setback requirement? What's the setback requirement?
20 feet,
20 feet?
20 feet side yard.
All right. Would the applicant stipulate to center the house on the property?
We've already agreed to construct the homes in their approximate locations. What I don't want to happen is 30 years from now, because I have clients that come to me to ask me to address these issues, where the board imposes a condition that's not consistent with the ordinance that forces the applicant to go back to the board. So we're going to build the homes generally in their location, which provides that 40-foot buffer. But I don't want to encumber the property. I'm concerned about 20 or 30 years down the road. That's my concern, which.
There is, I do already have a condition down that they would construct the homes substantially as depicted on the revised plans.
Right.
So that would be about 40 feet side yard from lot
As
49, not
depicted.
20.
Mhm.
It's a big difference, right?
But I would remind council that this is the time for comment now and the time for.
Well, I slightly opened the door,
Well,
so I'll take responsibility.
I got to agree, though, I think they met a lot of these things, and we're nitpicking here. They're agreeing to comply and being substantially, and not moving substantially off of what the plans are.
I don't understand if they comply with the township regulation, what is the other problems that we are facing here? I mean, whether it is 20 feet or 25 feet or 40 feet, I mean, I can understand the neighbor should live with the neighbor without fighting, but at least if they comply with the regulations, then they should do it. And as a good neighbor, they will probably allow us 10 feet, 20 feet more than the requirement, so that should be okay instead of.
Let me just ask a question of Mr. Silberg and to illustrate where I'm going here. Unless there's some unusual topography, and there does not appear to be unusual topography here, is there any reason why a home is not relatively centered on a property?
I think that anybody's gonna, I don't know how to answer that question, because if you own property, you're gonna develop the property however you wanna develop it within the confines of what the township's ordinance permits. But I just wanna go back we didn't have to do this. It's a gesture of good faith when I stipulated that we will construct the homes in the approximate locations where they're shown on the plans. That's a major concession. That's not.
Okay.
That's.
And where the plan it shows is relatively centered.
Yes, it is.
Okay, that's what I want to accomplish. I just want to make sure that this home does not get built, so there's a 25-foot side yard over here and a 65-foot, or whatever the number would be, over there.
But if that did happen, Councilman, I agree that that's silly, but that's what the ordinance allows you to do. I don't know why someone would do it, but I just didn't want to do something that would create an encumbrance on the property that The property is already restricted by what the ordinance permits, and I'm trying not to deviate from that. But we meet all of the requests that have been requested of us. We meet just naturally.
Correct me if I'm wrong, you moved the driveway to in between the existing house and the new house that you're building, right? Am I thinking the plan the right way?
Yeah, yes, correct.
Yes.
Between
Between the current house.
Between 49.
So the way they were laid out is to maximize the buffer from Ms. Technet. So what it did is the new property line, we went 10 foot over for the driveway. That set the driveway. My principle for the face of the house to the opposite side of the driveway is 35 feet. So you can back out and pull out comfortably. That's the face of the house. That set the house, period. So it's actually set as far over, away from her as possible. And the principle we use, sorry, but the previous planner, is technically we try to put it 10 feet from the property line. So that's what, 10 feet, 35 feet, the house is approximately 45 feet from the opposite property line. We set the two driveways centered to each other so that so the grass and the landscape side is completely to Ms. Tekanay's side. So the buffer and the grass are all on her side. The driveway's not on her side, the driveway's on the opposite side. So she's gonna get that natural look that she's looking for because of the way we laid it out. And we pushed it as far forward as possible, because I met with her and I looked out her future master bedroom. The house is forward of that. So now she gets the view of the valley. She doesn't have a house in the way, which she does right now. So I think we are meeting all the needs that she is looking for. All the requests, her list, her wish list, I think we've hit them all.
Mr. Peck, unless there are any other comments, perhaps it's a good time to run through the conditions that.
Maybe this is a question for, Mr. Peck, if I could. How approximate from our standpoint imposing restrictions on the property? How exact can we ensure that these plans be realized?
What do you mean when they stipulate to having the homes be substantially where depicted on the plans?
Yes.
I mean, I think that the eye test. I mean, there's no scientific formula that we can apply, but, you know, they have them sort of front-loaded, pretty much centered. That's where they're gonna have to be. You know, if they come back and say, hey, we wanna put it on the crest of the hill because we're gonna get a better view, that's obviously not substantially where they are. But I mean, it's not going to be done with like, this is your exact box and you have to stay in it. It's just front third of the property centered, driveways will be where they're depicted on the plans.
And to a similar response that I gave to a member of the public earlier, when they submit their final plot plan, when they actually go for a building permit for the homes, there's going to be oversight from engineering and from planning because it's flagged as a planning board application, hopefully, that the resolution controls, you know, those plans. So there will be some oversight before the building permit is issued based on those plot plans that they submit.
Also, the final permit will be basically also, you know, you will be reviewing the final permit condition anyway, right? Building permit conditions,
Yes.
or certification, I should say.
The subdivision would be part, so if this application is looked favorably upon, resolution compliance will really only be related to the subdivision plans that are proposed, the final plat for the subdivision. Anything further when they actually go to build the homes, because that's really not, I mean, it is something we discussed at this board level, but it's not part of it. They don't have to do them in tandem. Those building permits that will be sought for the homes themselves will be separate from this. However,
Right.
they will probably be flagged by the building department for the professionals to review those things because there are conditions attributed to this property that are within that resolution.
That's what I thought. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chowdhury. Mr. Peck, should we go through that list?
Yeah, now understand that the conditions, we've had 3 hearings and the plans have changed, and so there's gonna be some redundancy here. Just trust that, you know, I'll mesh them together at the end when doing it. So in addition to the standard conditions applicable to all applications, you know, that they'll act in accordance with their testimony and representations, will pay their taxes and escrow, get outside agency approvals. all that good stuff, that the applicant will stipulate to meeting all bulk requirements in the zone, including FAR, impervious, and setback. They'll meet all applicable stormwater regulations and will record the stormwater management plan. That the operations and maintenance manual for dry wells and the pervious pavement will be recorded. That relates back to the last. You can see the flow of the testimony where these come from. They'll get a letter from the applicant's engineer stating the findings regarding the wetlands, if any. No developer's agreement would be required. There'll be a conservation easement over the rear yard setback area, which is the rear 75 feet of each of the lots. Soil tests will be provided to the board engineer. The maintenance for the stormwater stuff, the pervious pavement, in addition to recording the O&M manual with the county clerk, there'll also be a reference to that in the lot deeds, that it's up to the individual lot owners to maintain the pervious pavement and the dry wells. The applicant is to, investigate the gravity lines for the sewage, subject to the board engineer's review and approval. And if feasible, they'll do some easements over those gravity lines, I guess, so the township can get in and if need be. Applicant is to provide slope calculations to the board engineering, landscaping and trees to the review and satisfaction of the board professionals. That includes the street trees. They will comply with all the review memoranda, except as otherwise testified, including but not limited to the sewer authorities, July 10 updated memo. Okay, that's redundant. That's redundant. It's going to be a grinder pump that has to be noted on the deed for the particular lot. If wetlands are discovered on the property, relating back to that condition several conditions ago, but if wetlands are discovered, they have to be delineated with monuments, and the conservation easement will also be delineated with some sort of monuments, so everybody knows where they are. And those monuments will be to the satisfaction of the board engineer. The tree removal and replacement calculations will be provided to the satisfaction of the board's professionals. Any existing trees being used for the street tree calculations, if those are identified during construction as being sick or dying, they'll be replaced. Relating again to the stormwater, the type of the pervious pavement, and the maintenance and operations manual is to the board engineer's satisfaction. The homes will be constructed in accordance with the zoning tables depicted on the plans. The homes will be constructed generally where shown on the plans. The existing grinder pump agreement servicing the lot will be canceled, and that cancellation will be recorded with the county clerk. The figure on the final plans that are submitted, all the various figures and numbers will be reconciled. The applicant will comply with the steep slope maximums for the FAR and impervious cover requirements. And that the homes will be in different styles, and I'll have to figure out the phrasing of that, but they won't be cookie cutter type construction. So if I forgot anything, now's your chance to get to that, and if the applicant has any disagreement with what was recited.
Hit them all, Mr. Peck. Thank you.
All right, very good.
That was in the plan, right?
I don't know if that's a condition, that they're gonna put it over, yeah, they're gonna put it over the whole rear setback area.
It was about the conservation easement.
Any board commentaries,
missed
Mr.
it.
Peck?
Yeah.
Just advance my request about the lot widths.
So that's really the decision on the flavors.
Mr. Silbert? No.
Sorry, I couldn't hear. I'm not sure what was just said.
Mr. Pappas brought up the lot widths.
And what was the question with respect to it?
Would you like to rephrase the question, Mr. Pup?
I just would restate what I asked earlier, that proposed 2 conforming lots with width and then the one non-conforming to the east of the property.
If the board's preference is that we do that, we will agree to do that. Would you? I don't know if the board would like to deliberate to state. I'm not sure what.
I think, yeah, no, I think there needs to be deliberation and a motion made. You know, I would just make a motion to accept the plans as presented, with the variances as requested, subject to all the various conditions. And if that doesn't go down, I guess another motion could be made then for the 2 and, 2 conforming and the one of 133. Yeah, sure.
Will of the board vote?
One 131, 131 and 133.
Yeah, I'm just saying procedurally how to do that. I think the cleanest way is just to put the one up to a vote, because if people are inclined to do the 2 conforming with the 1 greater nonconformity, then vote no, on the first motion.
Well, unless you want to do, a will of the board,
That's what I was going to ask.
if there's a preference.
Mr. Chairman, if it would be okay with you, as the applicant, we would like to hear perhaps some deliberation on what the board's preference is, and then we can certainly amend the application based upon some of the feedback we get. I don't know if, Mr. Peck, if you think that's suitable, but
Procedurally, we can.
Mr. Peck, I just want to offer my opinion based on, the professionals here had done an entire review based on plans that were submitted, showing the dimensions and all the setbacks and everything, even conceptual. So the entire plan we see today, if we scrap it for something that's, it's not something I would advise the board to just vote on and approve on the fly, because everything would change. Every single number shown in that bulk table would change. The lot area, the lot widths, the setbacks, a lot would change. And so I would just advise the board that, that could potentially delay this vote, or at least advise the applicant that that's my opinion, that I would like to see those plans, and I think the board should want to see those plans.
So what you are saying that for 131, the setback will be again have to be discussed for at least for a 131.
Yeah, we don't know if it's
Yeah,
131.5,
exactly.
133.5. We don't know what the conforming and non-conforming lot widths would be specifically, so we would be voting on a variance that doesn't even have an exact number.
Right.
If we have the lot, the length of the frontage of the lot, and we subtract 300, we have a number.
But let's say that they decide to make one 151, 152, and one, so there's a greater variance into that one, just based on when they start to look at things. So, there's no specifics to it. Yes, I think it's a decent idea, but I would say the applicant should explore it, and this board should want to see the plans prepared to show it.
Can we?
But if the board, if I could just, but maybe to, I think, Ashley's point or Niren's, just see if the board is even interested in that. If the board isn't interested in it, then you vote on the application as presented.
I'd agree that's probably fine. I would just want to warn that if we did move forward without those plans, that there could be unknown consequences to it that we didn't get to visualize and think through. And if we approved that to go to a final plat, we could be dealing with something we didn't even realize we were doing.
We're coming back if they're going to.
We would have to definitely come back.
Come back with the revised.
I think so.
Mr. Peck?
Let's go for simple.
You can deliberate and get a sense of the board, and the applicant can be guided accordingly.
With that, we can close that portion of the meeting and open up for deliberations based on that first, as the application came.
Yep.
I'll begin with you, Mr. Chowdhury.
I am for it.
As the application was presented?
Yes,
the original.
that makes sense, that all the three will be
flavor.
looking same. I like to have at least neighborhood looking similar rather than too big and one small. And now we know all the variants for the application as submitted. That's what we went through 3 days. So I would not like to disturb that one.
Mr. Banga, as presented?
I agree with Mr. Chaudhary. I think the applicants made significant improvements to all three of the different lots. It will be a benefit to the community. I think having equal-sized lots will make more sense than having a smaller lot.
Mr. Cora?
I agree. I'm going to say the same things they would.
Councilman Kirsch?
You know, I'm comfortable with either approach, and definitely sensitive that we could create chaos unnecessarily. And we've been here 3 nights, so I'm comfortable with either approach, and obviously that includes the relatively even distribution plan.
Mr. McGraw?
Basically, I'm looking at 3 equally sized frontages. I just have to walk out of the front door of my house and look at the houses across the street, which were built recently, as opposed to my house. My house is in a non-conforming area right now. Those across the street are 150 feet. I have no problem with equally sized frontages.
Mr. Pappas? Mr. Wang?
Yeah, I missed the one meeting, but in the first and this one, I saw that everything has to be modified, trying to satisfy whatever is on the table. So I appreciate that, and also I would like to see these 3 beautiful homes.
Mr. Atkins? I also agree on the equally sized lots. We discussed about the planning board being able to have the control over what's going to be built there, and I think that in doing so, having the 3 equally sized lots, it puts ourselves in more of a position to future-proof what's taking place. I've seen situations where sometimes somebody 40 years ago built a home in a corner of a lot, and it's catty-cornered, and they're like, no one's ever going to build behind there. And then there you go, 40 years later, somebody builds a home, perfect center, and that home that was built catty-corner looks strange all of a sudden. So I feel as though having 3 conforming lots probably helps the situation down the road. With that being said, do we need a roll call on?
I think you need a motion.
We need a motion.
You need a motion for the application or a motion for?
Well, I mean, if you're so inclined, you could make a motion to approve the application as presented with the conditions as stated.
That you stated.
Yep.
Okay. I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
That's Ms. Sikora and that's Mr. Chowdhury. Before we vote on that, Ms. Probst, could you just briefly bring us through who's eligible to vote? Because I know we've been here this 3rd night now, and I know there was some discrepancy early on. Okay.
Did not hear the tape to become eligible? Okay.
Okay, if you would like to repeat the roll, then. Yes?
Yes.
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 believe that's all of them, correct?
You need line 2.
We don't have
Yes.
Sikora?
Oh, good. Yes.
Thank you.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much, and thank you for indulging us this evening. I'm sorry again for what had happened earlier.
Not in your control.
Thank you
You
very much.
handled it
Mr.
very
Ford.
well. I know that's not easy.
What are you supposed to do?
Yeah, you can't.
I think it's just the coming events coming back.
Yeah, that's right. No, that's it. No, we're,
We covered a lot of ground tonight.
no, we did. Well, very anticlimactic. after all. Right, just a bit.
Oh, I know. It's like this. I know, you didn't even have to.
Ms. Probst, would you like to look at the calendar for the month of August? I think we discussed an 8/31 date. Is that, is there any business on 8/31?
That shouldn't even be scheduled.
Okay. Okay.
I'm sorry, our next scheduled meeting is the 20th, correct?
No business on the 20th?
So no meeting on the 20th.
Meeting on the 20th?
What?
I had the 31st or something, but that's fine.
August 31st?
August, that's fine. It's not.
August 31st is a Saturday.
What's on the 31st?
Then I have my August
third?
completely wrong here.
September.
September 3rd, right? Do we have anything in the month of September? Uh-huh. Okay.
For the 20th? Or for September? Okay. Okay.
That's October.
Right.
So there's no meeting on the 3rd either of September?
Well, that'll depend on council action, correct?
All right, so just to officialize it, any meeting, potentially meeting for 8/20 is canceled. Okay. I'm not sure if we'd have a quorum in this room. Do- Okay. Any other comments? Tomorrow. Okay. Well, that'll take a vote for adjournment, or a motion for adjournment.
I'll make that motion.
Ms. Sikora, second.
I'll second.
Councilman Kirsch, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That was,
Maybe see you in August.
huh?
Maybe I'll see you in
Maybe,
August.
maybe
Maybe.
not be here, so.
I actually may not be here either.
Well, that was an action-packed meeting.